Chasin The Racin, powered by Colchester Kawasaki. Part of the Global Moto Group, we supply new Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, Vespa, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Sim, Mutt and Benelli motorcycles.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasin The Racin.
It's my job to introduce this pod, and here we are. And I don't even know what you gentlemen are. I don't know if you're co-hosts, guests. I don't know what's going on. So it's a case of I'm joined here with the amazing celebrity that is Piggy. There we are. Mate, it's an audio show. You've got to keep talking.
Yeah.
You've got to bounce in there. Good man. And obviously we've got Brogan and we have Kev Pinder. And let me just start this podcast by borderline setting some ground rules, gentlemen. You know, it's a bit like, for me, it's important to get across that this isn't a testimonial podcast. The whole point of this podcast today is to discuss the plans for the future. And the main highlight and the main point I want to get across is we're continuing this to keep Chrissy's legacy going. And I guarantee you, we are not going to get this right. So the pressure's off everyone here. And we're going to make mistakes. You know, there's that many guests that we should be rolling through that door. You know, the whole BSB paddock, the motorcycle industry, period, should be at this table. So we've got to get that across. There's that many people to thank you. And we're not going to treat this as a normal pod. That goes without saying. You know, we're getting together and we're going to talk about like the highs, you know, the highs of Chrissy's lives and, you know, the lows and, you know, the situation that everyone's been going through. But it is important, and we're all here to say, you know, thank you to Chrissy and everyone and everything that's happened for him. And yeah, and I'm struggling to actually step into the next part of this conversation, but you know what I mean? Like I say, we're going to make mistakes, but I'm really over the moon. Kev Pinder sitting next to me because he's got a list here, ladies and gentlemen. So would you like to start off anywhere on that side of things, my man?
Well, we've got a few things to talk about, haven't we? One thing that's sort of struck me here, I was starting a slightly sad note, is the first time I've been in the trailer since Donington Park, so it was tough to come in, but I think the whole journey we're on with what's happened with Chrissy is about firsts. It's the first time in the trailer. That's going to be the hardest one, and then I'm okay now and ready to say as much as we can about the great man we're here to honour, really, and talk about, and obviously discuss the future of the pod, Dom. So where you up to with it regarding the new year, or are you going to discuss that a bit later?
We'll discuss that a little bit later, but it's interesting, like, you know, the thing that I keep bringing in mind is that, you know, we're in the Rouse household, you know, we're there with Martin and Karen this morning, we had a full briefing about this, and we're all nervous. At no point ever any of us have sat nervous for a podcast. We never have, you know, it's always just been in the flow in the moment. But to be blunt, without Chrissy Rouse, we wouldn't be here. You know, it wouldn't be you. And then that goes further down the line. Friends like Lundy. Lundy built this trailer. Now, I wouldn't have met Lundy because of Chrissy. He built the studio, and he's still, through Chrissy, he's combining that many different friendships to go. At no point did I ever want to make friends with a Scouser. And there's Steve Brogan sitting across from us, you know, and it's, is the feeling mutual, Steve?
That's all right,
are we still
mate.
friends?
Listen, I'll let it slide. My love's out there, mate. You know that. I love everyone. But yeah, just to add on what you guys are saying, first and foremost, it's a pleasure to be back here in the studio with you, Dom, and you guys. Obviously, to honour Chrissy's legacy and what you guys have built up in the podcast. It's well, I don't think my words need to sum up what the podcast is, because the numbers and the views it's had over the last couple of years since you guys have started it is second to none, and I would go as far as to say it's definitely the number one podcast in the whole of the UK motorcycle industry. So on that note, I think it's very important that between anybody in the motorcycle industry, whether it be racing, manufacturers, sponsors, people coming on the pod, if you can support it in whatever way possible, shape or form, to keep it that number one podcast. Because if you look back and see the amount of different people you guys have had on the pod, you and Chrissy, whether it be a mechanic, a sponsor, a team owner. Was you a sponsor as well, Piggy?
No, I know
you sponsored lots of things, mate, didn't you? So all the different types of people I've walked through that door and you guys have sat here and interviewed. there's a benefit to every person that they want to get out there and their different angles of what their involvement in the bike industry is, and it's been so interesting over the years. Some people have watched pods over the years thinking, I don't know that guy, I know of his name, or I'll maybe give that one a miss because I don't know him. And sat watching, I thought, bloody hell, I didn't know that about him, or didn't know that about it, or, and so been for me, such an interesting podcast. I've never really listened to podcasts, so it was like, but then the more I've listened to them, the more journeys I do up and down the road or whatever, whether I'm just listening to it on audio or I'm sat at home watching it on YouTube, they've been priceless to me. And as I say, it's such an honour to be back here and do this one today with you guys. Just knowing if the big man was sat in here with us, he'd be proud that, because speaking to Chrissy's dad in the house, he watched an interview that Chrissy had done with somebody some weeks ago.
It was with Bennett,
Bennett, yeah, I think it was, and at Donington Park, and they said the question was asked to Chrissy, what is your biggest achievement in racing? Thinking naturally it was going to be winning the British Superstock 1000 Championship, and he answered the question, said, my biggest achievement in motorcycling is the podcast. So I think that speaks volumes of the hard work that he and yourself put into this pod, Dom, to make it what it is, and for everybody in the bike community and industry to get from it what they want, and on the viewers ultimately and listeners, they all enjoy it, and all the different sides of the sport and different people you have in here. So, but it just shows a lot of the hard work and what it meant to Chrissy, what this podcast meant to him, and the work. And his dad was only mentioning, as I say, just before we started, some of the things that he's found out since Chrissy's passing, of the hard work that he did put in, the commitment, and you both put in to make it happen, one a week. And I understand it's not going to be one a week. You're going to aim for 2 a week now, Tom. Is that right?
Not a bloody chance. There is no way.
One every. What is it? One every other week.
One every week at the moment. Now that's what we're going to do for time being, because this you know what, this is a very, very difficult pod because there are no words left. Like you said, you know what I mean? There is and we can describe these situations 100 times over. But the one I would like to get across also, there's a very realistic fact that this may not work. Now that's me being open and honest about it. You know what I mean? And when I went to see Chrissy in hospital, I had a private a word with him, and it was a bit like why we built it up together. It was his father's idea. He said, why don't we do a podcast? But that was typical Chrissy. It was just execution. You know what I mean? He got an idea and he executed it. Not like, I'll have a think about it. He just went, right, let's do it. And, the first time he asked me, I went, piss off. And thinking he'll never ask me again.
Tell us about that, Dom. How did that conversation, and where were you at when that idea was it North Yorkshire or something? When did Chrissy call you to ask you about it?
Well, the first time, I didn't really like it. The North Yorkshire, he was very much one of them. I'm a roads man, you know what I mean? It was very much, I'm a road racer, you wear hair gel and you got nice teeth and you're well mannered and everything like that. Yeah. You stand on that side of the room, I'll smoke tabs and chat shite over here, you know what I mean? And he came to the North Yorkshire, and the first time I actually got invited down as a guest rather than a sponsored rider. So the North Yorkshire have a catchment area and sponsored loads of people. And they dragged me on stage, had a couple of pints in it, and I didn't shut up. And I think Chrissy must have gone, aye, he's a gibbering gobshite. And it was actually the North East dinner dance that he was presenting at, handing out the awards. But you see, being all bike fan, I need to say, everyone listening to this is a bike fan, and you're going to hear the name very early on in his career, Chrissy Rouse. Even watching the Triumph Triple Challenge and stuff like that was like, bloody hell, that North East lad's flying. And I didn't know him at that point. You know what I mean? I knew of him, but I didn't know him. And it was a North East dinner dance. It was around about 1 a.m. I was up on the table, top off, swinging across, and he actually went, this is my time now to ask him. Because obviously Chrissy didn't sleep, did he?
No.
You know what I mean?
He was a night owl, wasn't he?
Yeah. that was an understatement. He didn't wake up in the morning, but he was like, he'd ring you at like, do you get met? What's the latest text you got off Chrissy? With a serious question. Go on, steady on.
After midnight, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, way after, yeah, 2 o'clock, so, yeah.
2 in the morning, he got that sorted. Chrissy, I'm in bed, mate.
I'd often be sort of getting ready to drop off to sleep, and my phone would usually be on silent and that, but I'd just turn on, look and see my phone, and he would be ringing at 11:45, 12 o'clock. Yeah. And then my wife would be getting into bed, and I think, well, I'll take the call, and then I'd end up going downstairs for 45 minutes and chatting about something, and then you've got back upstairs. And
Chrissy, you've cost me a shag. What is it? What do you think about turn 2, Silverstone? Chrissy, this is not a good time, son. We'll look at the footage later on there. By the way, for people just tuning in, like, we'll talk about, Kev and like their relationship, but you were actually the spotter, but we'll go down that route. But yeah, so Chrissy, going back to it, so Chrissy asked me, at that point, and I went, right, I like you, see, I don't listen. You know what I mean? Podcasts, I just don't. People do or they don't, kind of thing. Yeah. And for me, didn't listen, and then he asked again, and then he actually asked a third time, and I went, you know what? Let's give it a go. And I was living with my sister at the time, so I was like, and went over, and we just, it was so raw. Even when you listen to the first ones that weren't even on YouTube. And it was just...
Was it in your sister's front room, or...?
It was at a little table. We just got Bosco, who's the dog, and he's a bull mastiff weighing like just shy of like 11 stone now. Like Chrissy could pick up. He was shit scared of dogs,
I didn't like dogs at all. Not at all.
I take that back. He wasn't scared of them, but my God, he was cautious. You ever seen him?
No.
Well, it was actually Grace telling us that when he was living in Spain, like doing the where was he based again?
Almeria.
Almeria.
Just outside Malacca.
Yeah.
Caravan park outside Malacca.
Yeah.
Have you just made that name up and you're just agreeing? Malacca.
Malacca.
Just Malacca.
Just near knocking shop, man.
Where's the knocking shop? I don't know where that one is.
Oh well, we'll have to cut this out. Don't you dare cut that out, Grace. That's good crack. Well, but Grace was telling this, and so was Martin, that he used to go for run. He was always on for runs. If he couldn't get in touch with Kev to talk about turn 2 at Silverstone, he would go for a run at night. But he was doing that in Spain, like concentrating on his training. And one night he got chased by like wild dogs.
There's loads about on that road.
Yeah, I've actually been chased over there myself, cycling early one morning.
You were probably chasing the dogs, you. We probably catching them. That's it. I need a fight. I'm joking. But no, and at that point he got a bit worried. But when we got Bosco, and it was just a tiny little puppy, and this thing like butter wouldn't melt. You know what I mean? And Chrissy went panicked. I went, I can't believe that. And obviously I used to wind him up all the time, and I've actually taken Bosco to his grave and he's your mate again, just to wind him up.
So that was the first one was in your sister's living room, and then how long you did some in the motorhome as well, didn't you?
Yeah, well at that point it was borderline becoming a little bit not more serious. We just got used to it, and to be honest, the pod grew because we saw a benefit out of it. There is no money now, but like we saw a benefit in it. We saw it training ourselves and everything like that, and we became like borderline actors in that point. The Jacqueline Hyde element, and it was really good.
It was like two mates in a pub quite often, when it just chatting away about crap really, and your two personalities are different, and it was the contrast was perfect. Really, I think.
And to be honest, and even going back to that, it's like that's why this may not work. You know what I mean? And like we can go into details later on, and we'll actually come with a full plan at the back end of this podcast. But there is a chance that this may not work. And like you say, Chrissy was the driving force off the pod. It was his heart and soul, and it was just two rogues, and we just worked at it. But the thing is, what's going to be difficult is replicating that off the peg madness, because for the busiest lad in the paddock, without fail, running your own superbike, he literally ran his own superbike team, for God's sake. He was horrendously unorganised. He was that busy, wasn't he? It was all like, we'll just do that. Like Chrissy, we're broken down on the side of the motorway. We'll get it sorted. It's like, no, I've got.
It was strange. It was just, they say unorganised, but it was it always worked though. It was just
organised chaos.
100%. But the thing, he took that much. Imagine if Chrissy rolled the throttle back 2%. Imagine how But he didn't want to.
He wouldn't have been Chrissy then, was he?
No. 100%, exactly. But if you just imagine how organised everything would have been, it would have been a programme, he would have ruled the world.
Anyway, let's talk about how slickly today's gone down. Picking the trailer up this morning.
Oh
yeah, Dom. Start with your morning, and let's see how your morning went.
Nice new pickup, haven't you, Dom? You've got a new truck, haven't you?
yeah, not anymore. But I tell you what,
So by the way, we should have been starting at 11 o'clock. It's now 20 to 1 in the afternoon, and we've only just started. Why is that, Dom?
No, I tell you what, you know why that is?
I'm going to tell my kids why I'm not home late this afternoon for the birthday party. You can FaceTime my son later and tell him.
It's time difference in between Scousland and
Newcastle.
Geordieland.
I didn't know there was a time zone.
Thank you very much, Vic. There you go. But I tell you what, honestly, the mad thing is, you said if Chrissy was sitting in this room, he is sitting behind those lights now, laughing his cock off.
Yeah.
It's 100% him. So this, my pickup, I had a little blue, but oh man, the stories that we got, there was a huge story behind that. Actually, Chrissy got it edited out for the right reason at the right time, if you know what I mean. But that's a different story for another time. But I had this blue little pickup that costs $2,000. Went for an MOT thing, right? We're going to be Mr. Smooth. We're going to get the trailer. Because I've stored this trailer back at one of my old units in Hexham. So we live in County Durham. Thinking, right, no problem. Get the van through the MOT. MOT's failed. I mean, everything. It's a pile of crap, this thing. You know what I mean? They're like, shit, both brake lines exploded on the MOT test. And I'm going, any chance you could pass it? Piss off, you know what I mean? No way in hell. So I thought, right, now that we're going to, we're continuing this pod for Chrissy's legacy, I'm going to have to get a different vehicle. So the bank bought me a new pickup. Not brand new, new to me pickup, should I say, you know what I mean? So I thought, right, this is going to be reliable, nice and smooth. So I said to Martin, so Martin's been, keeping active and, keeping his hand in. I tell you what, he's definitely a massive driving force, and he always has been, Martin, for this pod. Chrissy and him always talked about the plans, and we've always sat down and had little meetings. Martin's really behind this. And I turned up, I said, Martin, I'll pick you up. He goes, oh, no, we'll just go in my van. We'll just go in my van. I'm like, no, I'll pick you up. That was the first mistake. I'm trying to show off. So picking up Martin's like this, going, oh, this is nice. I'm like, it is, isn't it? We'll drive around the country in this, and we'll get all the pods done. Hitch the trailer on, different socket for the lights. So I thought, bollocks, that's the first bump in the road. Good thing we set off early, because Brogan would be upset if we're late.
Talking about organised chaos again, yeah?
100%.
That's good. Continue.
Went to Screwfix and went, right, they don't have the fitment. Went to Tool Station. Has anyone noticed them two are parked up next to each other everywhere in the country?
Yeah, I think they're sister companies, aren't they?
They're sneaky twats.
So, yeah,
but they
Screwfix and Tool Station.
But they don't sell adapter converters for trailers. That's the problem. So if anyone who works there, listen to this, sort your act out. Anywho, went to AV Taylor's, another shop, they didn't have it. Took Martin for a tour round Hexham. He thought, this is lovely. I'm thinking, we're still on time here. Brogy's not going to chew me out. We're still on time. Up to 69, van shits itself.
When you say shit itself, drop a valve or...
I have not, mate. I was about to drop a valve. I was that angry. I've just spent the money. I'm like, oh my God. What? Lucky for me, it's on Ticky. I'll have to sort it.
Just to paint the scene, you've got your new truck and this trailer on the back.
Yep.
And you stopped over on a two-way road or
dual carriageway. Just cranked it over. Got Martin in the passenger seat. So who comes
down to a halt on the slip road?
Yep, that's the one. And then who comes to the rescue is our own Kev Pinder. So he comes and hitches the trailer on. I'm waiting to get recovered and all sorts. So then Grace has come in and set all this up, and he's got all you lot full of coffee and sandwiches going, you're an hour late. And that was the beginning of the story anyway. So in true Chrissy Rouse fashion, organised chaos. Yeah. So he is 100% here for that. So I am sorry for this.
We had a good chance for a catch up, won't we?
That's all right. Good, yeah. We'll let it off, Tom.
On this occasion.
Just.
Okay.
How the traditions continue.
That's it. That is it. But I tell you what, I am absolutely loving this list, and I think this is a good opportunity to even go into, let's talk about, the thank you element, and where do we even begin? And like I was saying, there's that many people to thank. We can't name the one. We're going to miss someone. We're not going to get this right. I'm telling that to everyone, but I think we should even start with.
I came over yesterday and I stopped over with the family, and so yesterday I had a bit of time. Went past your place, Dom. I got to know the area a bit better. Went up and seen Chrissy's grave. just got to, and I saw the place where Chrissy grew up when he was younger, where on that YouTube film that he's on. So I had a bit of a tour of the area and sort of spent a bit of time with the family. But something that I think Martin's mentioned to you as well is the funeral. We have to start with the funeral.
Yes.
The turnout, the riders that come to escort the hearse, the outriders from all over the country. I know there's people from Wales, Shropshire, Cambridgeshire, all right. The weather conditions that morning were horrendous. It cleared up just in time for the funeral. But them lads, all lads and girls, all arrived soaked, I'm sure, cold. Between 200 and 300 of them, I think.
And that's just the bike.
Someone I know from the Lake District drove over. He come across off the 66, drenched, and just to be there to do their part. Obviously, the school, the effort the school put in.
Yeah.
I just know the organisation that went into it. It was a huge event to organise. I'm assuming the school thought, yeah, we can organise a funeral for you, and 500-600 people, whatever. But I don't think they've envisaged the love people had for him and the amount of people that did turn up. Riders, I know riders don't like going to funerals. That's and I totally respect that as well. It's a difficult one for. I know Chrissy and I both went to Ben Godfrey's funeral, and Chrissy, that was something Chrissy wanted to do, but it is hard. I spoke to Josh Brooks at the funeral, and sort of said thank you for coming. He did say he openly said, admitted that it's something he normally tries not to avoid, but on this occasion he felt that the measure of the man that we were respecting was too great not to come, and he couldn't not have come. So just little things like that it doesn't change what's happened, but it's for the family and for myself, and I'm sure as all seeing people come all that way and make the effort to come and show the respects was unique. I thought it was unique.
It was like something I've never seen. In terms of a celebration of somebody's life in just all I know is the BSB paddock mainly. I've never seen an outpouring of respect, gratitude, everything. Well, and I guess it's because of the guy Chrissy was, and how he touched everybody. He anyone who he ever come across the paths, they definitely never forgot about him. And typical Chrissy, he was more interested about wanting to know what they've been up to in their day and how their day is going. And like Christian Idden said in his little piece about Chrissy, he was more interested about him than his own race. And I think that's exactly why he got the outpouring that he did, whether it be at his funeral was an amazing turnout, and big credit to the college, as you said, the fantastic arrangement that they put on there to accommodate everybody inside the sports hall, the bikers, and everyone who didn't manage to get inside of the college, and everyone who watched on YouTube as well, especially.
It was overflow rooms as well, wasn't it? All organised.
All the social
media. I didn't know they were them. I thought they were just that main bit. But then somebody said, "Oh no, this was and that," and you think. You didn't realise that. I saw how big it was and how many people were there.
When you think the building was maxed out at 2,000 and every room was full.
Yeah. And there were people outside and everything around it.
And then, like you say, the YouTube element alone, and Chrissy loved his figures, but it was like over 4. Like, I haven't even checked it recently, you know what I mean? It's just like, it was last time I checked.
Someone said it was best part of 40,000 I've watched it.
That was a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you think, and that is just. And, I would like to touch up on something already, and it was when we spoke really quite early on after Chrissy's death, and it was, you hit the nail on the head, Kev, and I would like you to almost, I'm trying to feed you in without giving it away, this story, but it's like the measure of the man and how people saw him, and it was like in reference to a lot of people remember riders for their results, and it was just
I think I said to you about and I followed the sport since I was a young lad, and the only time I remember anything like this was when Joey Dunlop died. I think think it's on record as been the biggest funeral in Northern Ireland, I believe.
It will be, yeah.
It was, I think.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Joey Dunlop was a great man. He did a lot of, his missions he took to Eastern Europe and that with clothing. He was a kind fella, but a very quiet man. But if you look at his most of the people that I feel, maybe don't want to disrespect anything, but
no.
Most of Chrissy's legacy was his kindness and his love as a person, along with his amazing ability on a bike.
Yeah.
And over quite a short career, when you compare it with someone like Joey who'd been around all them years, and the TT's a different sort of, it does have a different following, probably a bigger following in some ways because of the danger element and people, the admiration that road racers get does tend to be a little bit different. But I've never seen anything like that since Joey, and it's like I say, it doesn't change anything, but it makes me incredibly proud.
Oh God, Bennett!
Yeah.
Like you say, you remember the man before the racer, and not many people have it, especially in our sport. At the end of the day, we are in a niche sport. It is the greatest sport in the world, without a doubt. But we're a niche sport that is very easy to remember what they have achieved, not for who they are. And Chrissy is definitely throwing that out the window. People are remembering Chrissy as well as being a top rider. It's definitely that order. Definitely.
Yeah, I think he's more remembered for the guy that he is rather than the racer, although any of the lads that I've ever raced against him will say different.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure many of them have got stripes on the leathers off his rubber or wherever that will argue different, but for general people in the paddock, whether it be mechanics or sponsors or teams that he's ridden for, I mean, I felt like personally, I'd already mourned Chrissy before I went to his funeral, because the BSB weekends, the last round at Brands Hatch, the remembrance of the couple of minutes silence that we've done on the grid and different tributes and stuff like that, for me it was heartbreaking to watch and see and be there at the track and see all the people, the amount of people over the weekend that had all been and bought the CR69 caps or t-shirts and running the CR69 stickers on the bikes and all over the place. And it was almost like the morning had started then at the last round of the BSB. It was such a you could tell, like I said to Marty after that particular weekend, I was walking from where our team was set up in the paddock through to the toilets, and I was just walking back down, next thing, and just randomly in the middle of all these vans and motorhomes and race trucks, big picture duct taped onto the back of someone's truck, just of Chrissy on his bike, saying "Rest in peace, Chrissy." Like, no, it wasn't even on like a main section of the paddock. It was just, and I just thought, just randomly walking through on the back of someone's truck, and I thought he was literally all over the place, like all over, and it was so nice to see, and a massive credit to Stuart Higgs and the whole BSB team, the marshals, everybody that came out to make all that happen and give him sort of a BSB send-off, if you like, in that respect. And it was amazing. It was very touching. All the fans that were there at the sides of the track giving a rounds of applause. Yourself, Dom and Crowe, riding his bikes around the track, I'm sure was emotional for you guys. It was, I've never seen nothing like it at BSB in my life.
No, and just going on back to the BSB, the effort that the whole BSB team made. I mean, they made the trophy room above race control alongside it available for anybody who just wanted a bit of time out. So Grace spent a bit of time up there, and you were up there, Dom, as well, and just somewhere you could go, and just they did whatever they could to try and ease that day. And after the events at Donington and Chrissy's passing out, I thought I just don't fancy going back to BSB for a long time. I just couldn't face it. And then when I realised they were doing the tribute, I thought, well, should I go? I didn't know whether to go. And then I heard Grace was going. I thought, wow, that's what a brave girl to go. And I thought, well, I'm gonna get myself down. I'll go. So I went down, and I'm so glad I did. And I can't believe on the day how much I got out of it, which was something I didn't expect to get. And you have to sort of say that's down to the way that the organisers handled the whole thing as well. It was poignant, special, wasn't it, Piggy?
Oh, unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That got me on grid when they're having silence. Like, all you could hear were flags.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
69 seconds.
69 seconds.
I tell you what, and Larry Carter did an amazing job. I tell you what, honestly, leaving there was nothing left on the table.
No,
nothing. And and like the fact that if Grace was there, Karen and Martin, they understandably they didn't want to make it down, but the fact that Grace was there and at the front of it, it's just been, you couldn't have asked for more, and that was just unbelievably done. And the thing is, it wasn't just like the BS, it's been everyone around us, and it's like, Zoe started a collection, for stickers, and then it's like HMY, the collection went from there, and, like the auction set up by Alan Garner, and FS3, they came together, and all the riders chipping in, and it just shows,
the generosity of that auction.
It was
special. It was
incredible, but riders coming together and everything, even Chris Barnes, I'm gonna throw his name in there. He's got 2 of his own sons racing at this championship, and he spent a lot of money. He bought Chrissy's electric Soko. Am I saying that right?
Scooter.
Yeah, Super
Soko. Thank you very much.
Is that a scooter?
I'm trying to. I literally wrote a note there going, Chrissy, we're proud of this. I'm a corporate slag. I'm trying to get the and I got
that could be your new era.
That's it. But no. It's a kid, even Chris Barnes turned up and saw the Super Soko, and literally he bidded and bidn't because you were there, you were at the back of a massive pile, and
I wanted to bid on the scooter, and I'm deaf anyway, and I couldn't hear a word because the PA system wasn't the best. And in the end, I ended up having to leave because it was frustrating. I couldn't hear anything, and I was so gutted because I fancied having a little go at his scooter.
I
don't know whether.
Oh God, no! It was
beat Chris Barnes to that.
It was a case of the money kept going up, and it wasn't the only thing that he bought, and it kept going up and up and up, and it was like, bloody hell! At this point, I didn't even know he was there, and it just went up and up and up and up and up and up. Because bearing in mind when they started this, and it was advertised, the money was going to the family, and it just kept going up and up and up, and he just walked up to us. So I've just give that to Grace, will you? And that just shows that word community again and again and again, how everyone is together. We're in a competitive paddock even, and you get, it gets on your nerves, or I wish you didn't do that. But with that, it's just...
That's why I got so much, I said I got so much out of going. It wasn't just a tribute, it was like things like that where you almost pinch yourself thinking, wow, this is...
That's it.
Because racing is quite a selfish thing, we all know that. It's about you on that track, but when you see everyone pulling together and the other thing I wanted to mention as well, which I actually got to see it on the day because we watched it up in the trophy room, was the Eurosport coverage. I can barely speak thinking about poor Matt Roberts who led that thing. There was Martin, Jamie Whittam, James Hayden, and Shaky, and Matt couldn't get his words out. And again, I've never seen anything like that before.
In television. No. You know what I mean? Especially experienced lads like that in motorsport.
So talking ardent to it, aren't they? It's not as if it's...
Yeah.
I mean...
So touched by his loss, yeah. And, thank them for that,
it was good, very good, wasn't it?
It was.
But like I say, I keep referring back to this. We are going to miss people with the thank yous and everything, but the most important thing, and you stipulated at the beginning of this, was we cannot get across how thankful the whole family we are.
Yeah.
Everyone that Chrissy's been in touch, in touch their lives, it's how thankful everyone's just come together.
I just know people messaging the family, and no one knows what to say either. It's such a hard time. You wanna hold someone's hand and help them, but you don't want to say the wrong thing either. But people are brave enough to ring and to message and to pop and see them, and that's something that's really comforting everybody.
Martin was saying he's had letters from all over the world, from people that don't even know Chrissy, just through watching the podcast and listening to you guys interviewing, and some of the letters they've had, and it's just, it just speaks volumes of again, well, people feel that they know Chris even though they didn't know him just through watching him in here.
That's
And
right.
I've heard so many people say that about him. They've sat and watched hours of video footage of him sat there chatting to different various people in here. So they kind of feel like they do know him even though they don't.
That's right.
So all these people have felt the grieve, they've grieved with us. And hence why they felt the need to send the family letters of
flowers and
exactly
everything.
And this is I think this is a good point to bring up right now. It's I think we need to highlight how much of an ambassador for this sport he is.
Absolutely.
And what not was, he is. You know what I mean? And we're talking about the school element. It's he was a highly educated lad. You know what I mean? He focused on his education as well as his passion. He's built his own BSB team with his friends, won Stock 1000 Championship, and he still had an education and still thought about everyone else. And you're thinking, for a selfish sport, look what Chrissy Rouse did.
He gave back into the sport, and that's what I was trying to say before. If everybody in all the different involvements of the bike industry, whether it be racing or manufacturer or sponsor or whatever, try and support this podcast as much as they can moving forward. And I know, Dom, you're going to announce towards the end of this show what your plans moving forward are and who you're going to be working with, and you'll name them and stuff a little bit later on. But if everybody could get behind you guys and really give it the support that it deserves, because at the end of the day, we all get from it, and we're, especially the winter months, we're sat at home, and we all learn something new on the podcast, whoever the guest is on the show, and even the ones that say, "Oh yeah, I've never listened to it," they have, because they all know certain bits of information from it, because that they wouldn't know only that was said in here. So it's it should be a good priority for everybody to keep this as the number one motorcycle podcast.
Well, Chrissy said to me, and you've said it, Dom, if one person can get some comfort or some joy or something from it, it's worth doing. And it is, isn't it?
He's talked about to me a few times, and Martin's mentioned it as well, is that you get messages of people who are struggling with their health, either their general health or even mental health, or they're having relationship problems. And I think he's once said that he's a father and son, they just didn't get on, but the one thing they did do together was listen to the podcast, which is getting messages like that about things. I think it's a tribute to the unique sort of partnership that you two have as well. It's like listening to two mates having a bit of banter about motorbike racing, and you're into motorbike racing and you relate to the banter. It passes a couple of hours, and if people aren't well as well, or they're lonely, it's over the lockdown especially, Chris said he got a lot of messages from people who were struggling with the loneliness of that time, and he was determined to keep the podcast going because he was allowed to do that, and it was something I know he was really proud of.
Oh God! But that was like another massive thing, like the whole, we're going to talk about it. We've gone through that period of all our lives is the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and it was just like that just showed, and that's one of many highlights that Martin talks about of his own son, is the fact that he was not a sheep. That man was not a sheep, and he just went, you know what, we're going to do this as safely and best we can, but we're not stopping. And when your mate comes up, you go, we're not stopping. Right,
well, Chrissy was clever.
Let's crack on. Right, I've got the trailer hitched on. Let's where are we going? Well, if we go at night, we're not gonna get pulled over. So let's crack on. Let's go. You know what I mean?
But Chrissy was clever enough and also wise enough to know that it was because you were living at it was all within the rules, the rule, and the fact that broadcasting was allowed to continue. So he was quite within your right, but he was determined to do that. And like you say, I know Karen mentioned it at the funeral, didn't she, about he wasn't a sheep.
He was not that.
And that's actually something I wanted to talk about a little bit, because I never really listened to podcasts at all until I met Chrissy. And obviously I met Chrissy before he started his podcast, but he introduced me to like Joe Rogan podcasts and other podcasts like that. And there were subjects I'm 55 years old, And he taught
thought
me.
you would have been more than that.
Oh,
Kev.
shut up.
Oh,
yeah.
come on. Now we're kids. Come on.
Hold on a minute. Is that with or without the VAT, Kev?
That's a bit of that on top,
The
mate.
VAT on there.
He taught.
What's that?
Oh, here we go. Another investigation.
You only deal in cash, don't you, Piggy?
Yeah,
Sausage
cash
and
is-
mash.
Cash is king.
Cash
That's
is
why
good.
he's so short. It's all that cash weighing him down, you see. That's it. Sorry.
Yes.
We just went off on one there.
So yeah, and yet, despite his young years, every topic you talked about, Chrissy always knew both sides of the argument from everything, and it was like but he got that knowledge through listening to podcasts and hours of podcasts, driving up and down at BSB and wherever he went. He had a fascination with looking for what the world was all about, what everything life was all about, and that's why he wasn't a sheep, because he weighed up that sometimes what you've always thought isn't actually quite right, or there's another side to every story, and that was something that always fascinated me. We would share podcasts later on. He would recommend a podcast to listen to, or I'd like one, then I'd send it to him. And I know that when he got to do the podcast with Guy Martin, they learnt as well that they had similar sort of.
Oh, yeah.
So, Guy, you probably
I was in the room.
Tinfoil hat, as we probably call it.
Well, I called them not the tin hat brigade. It was great, and I'm like, that guy.
So
like, do you want a tin hat, son? And he just looked at us. It doesn't matter. It's an inside
So they were sharing podcasts to listen to about, guys quite into Russian politics and stuff like that. So it's just just a fascination of well, I've not been a sheep, yeah.
I tell you what, it's funny how you said, like, it's not funny, it's bang on. It's, two sides, and that's something that we carried off into the podcast. And I remember saying when we got together, let's do a podcast, and I said, let's be blunt, we're not dishing out cheap shots. Now, my argument, so my explanation, what cheap shot is making a blind statement without trying to understand their side of the argument. And Chrissy carried that so well, because he used to ask difficult subjects, and we used to discuss it going, well, I don't agree with that, but I can see why he did it. He backed everything up, and that and that's what we learned together. Yeah. Was that skill set of going, I don't agree with that, but this is the reason why, and then let the discussion go from there, going, you're wrong, and leaving it at that. That's just, it wouldn't have worked, would it? No.
Going back to what you were just saying there, Kev, with Chrissy's interest in other different podcasts that he'd listened to and educated himself on so many different various subjects and stuff, and it was only after Chrissy died, and I was going through my phone, reading back on some messages and videos and different things we'd shared, and he'd actually sent me a link to a pod. It was the Stephen Bartlett, The Diary of a CEO pod, and it was a Tony Bellew one. I didn't even know what it was. He'd send me it in June, and he'd say, hey mate, check this out, you'll get a lot from it. And that's all he said. And one thing or another, it was just a link. I didn't even know it was a podcast that he'd sent me, and I had no idea anyway. So I clicked on it, seeing what it was, and it was obviously this podcast of Tony Bellew with Stephen Bartlett. I didn't know who Stephen Bartlett was or what his podcast was about or anything. And so anyway, one day I put my pods in and took the dog for a walk down the beach, and it was fascinating. It was like, I thought I knew of Tony Bellew, the boxer, and Chrissy probably thought he sent it to me because it'd been a Scouse thing, but it was nothing to do with that. It was his whole story and a lot of it not to do with boxing, the backgrounds of his life and everything, and what triggers him and what fueled his fire, and it was just amazing. And the power of a podcast and what the different things that it offer to give people, of whether it be motivation or to know that it's okay to feel this certain way and feel that way. Because if these people, the likes of Tony Bellew, have been champions of their sport, and they explain their struggles that they've gone through in their life, whether they be skint and they've got no money, they've gone through so many difficult times to reach that point, then they've had setbacks, then they've had more struggles to get to the next point, and he documents all this in this interview. And for anyone who's not listened to it, it's well worth a listen Tony Bellew on the Stephen Bartlett Diary of a CEO podcast. I say Chrissy sent it to me just randomly and said, have a listen to this, and I didn't actually get round to listening to it until he wasn't here for me to tell him what I thought of it. But going back to the whole subject of podcasts, this is exactly what your podcast does to people in our sport, is gives them that feeling of all these different things that they get from it, you know, to know that, you know, it's okay to be like this or it's okay to be like that, and just share general things and, you know, to do with our sport. But some people watch it on YouTube, some people don't. Some people prefer to listen to it driving down the road. It's fine.
Like when you're talking like the backstory of someone, I think for me, you know, the biggest change in this pod was obviously, you know, like Lundy, you know, built the studio and we had a little bit of momentum. But for both me and Chrissy spent, my God, we're never at home. We spent thousand miles ago, but we both agreed on this, was that Josh Brooks episode at Donington Park.
Yes.
Because the massive change in that, what the pod meant to people was, like, because it all started off, I thought Josh Brooks was an arsehole till I watched this. And it changed. It gave people a chance to get their story across. And having someone like Josh Brooks...
I need to watch that one then. Josh, I'm only kidding. I don't think you're an arsehole.
Brilliant.
No,
but you know what I mean? No, but...
Yeah. I'm being serious. I haven't actually watched this, so I need to watch that.
I think it's a bit of a turning point in the pod, from what I remember, is did you have a bit of a rule, Dom, that if someone asked to come on, Chrissy would always say if they asked to come on, we'll try and resist, because he wanted to be, you know, he wants to be led by the people who run you get invited on. But I believe you had to change the rule, because I believe Josh asked to come on for that episode, didn't he?
He did.
So from then on, you've changed your.
Yeah, we're definitely like.
What an honour! We'd be asked by Josh. Yeah.
That's it though. And he thought, why did he want to come on? And it was just this pub crack element. You know what I mean? I'm not being funny. Yes, we have microphones in my face, but we've had this discussion in there on the phone separately, and it's just, that's what this is about. And the fact that Josh Brooks wanted to come in and do that, and it got his side of the stories across, and it was like, it humanized him. So you know what I mean? And that just brought...
I was going to ask him, because I ask odd people don't have to go on sort of thing, but I was always a bit... I'm a fan of Josh Brooks, and I never thought I could go and ask him.
Don't tell me you were shy, Piggy. You know, you never got stage fright.
You were just a superstar.
Well, no, you know, when Chrissy started working, like you started working with Chrissy, I told you before I was a bit of a fan of yours.
Really?
Like, you remember when I was polishing your ring?
I've never seen...
Hey? Remember that day when we got oil on your fingers?
I've never seen you wearing any of my T-shirts.
And I said, I was a bit of a fan of yours, Steve. And I said, here I am polishing your ring. It's nice when you achieve your goals, Piggy. I remember when mission.
Do you know, yeah, I do. I remember that, mate. We go back. We mean you go back some years as well, don't we, Piggy?
Oh my!
Well, let's go back to the mission days.
Yeah, well, so just to on a bit of a lighter note, speaking about Chrissy as the racer, Chrissy, which is obviously how I got to sort of get to know Chrissy properly.
Before you go down that mission route, what was your first meet with Chrissy? What date? Like, how brief was it?
Funny enough, I posted a picture of it on my social media not so long ago. It was a Thundersport GB Awards evening, and Steve Day...
He must prowl around award evenings, Chrissy. Yeah. It's like, I'll pick him.
Steve Day sent me this picture, and it was a picture of me and Chrissy, and I was a guest of honour that evening presenting the trophies. And I'd presented Chrissy his trophy, and obviously once we'd learned Chrissy had passed, Steve Day sent me this picture, and it was me and Chrissy, and it was the first ever time we actually ever met. It was when I handed him his trophy and shook hands for winning the Aprilia Super Team Championship. So that was the first time we'd met. Obviously, we never really got a chance to chat properly or whatever that evening. The next time was Alicante Airport, and I was going out to do some coaching for focused events. Chrissy was living in Spain at the time over the winter doing some training, and to earn a little bit of free track time, should we say, he was doing a bit of work for focused events, doing airport runs and stuff like that. Bit of helping running the track days and stuff. And anyway, comes out of Alicante Airport, in arrivals, there's Chrissy holding a sign, Steve Brogan, why, aye, man. All right, Steve. I'm Chrissy Rouse. Nice to meet you. And I'm like, Chrissy, you don't have to introduce yourself to me, mate. I remember who you are. Super Teen champ. And he's like, why? Anyway, that was it. So, needless to say,
That'll be 2013, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And needless to say, we jumped in the minibus back off up the road, and I spent a lot of time with him over in Spain, across them over the next year or so. And then one day he came up to me and said, Steve, would you be interested in crew chiefing me at the British Superbike race meetings in the Stock 1000 Championship? I said, yeah, no problem. I'd never really give it much thought, to be honest, playing that type of role. And he said, well, how in what areas do you think you'd be able to help me? So I explained, I said, probably I could help you, because he said I'm kind of like just over a second off the front runners. He said, I'm doing everything I can. I don't know how I can bridge that gap. So I said, there's plenty we can do to bring that down. He said, I've no idea how to set the bike up, suspension, gear, and this, that, and the other. So I said, well, kind of Stock 1000 was my sort of baby, if you like, over the last 10 years of me racing. So I said, if I'm pretty sure I'll be able to help you out in a lot of areas. So anyway, we struck a deal and off we went. And I went on to work with you guys, didn't I? Piggy and Mission Racing Team.
Yeah. With Jordan, weren't it?
With Jordan Gilbert, yeah.
Polishing rings.
Polishing rings.
Yeah, so, and Chrissy was riding, obviously, Stock 1000, BMW. He'd have been, what age was he then, Piggy? 19?
18, 19.
19, yeah.
19, yeah.
And so he was literally just like a sponge, full of just raw, natural aggression, which for any of the people that ever watch this pod sat and seen him here talking, and as I say, there's only the racers that have raced against Chrissy will know what I'm talking about when I say this, but whatever happened to him when he put a helmet on, when he left that pit lane, he was just a different animal altogether. He went from being the nicest, most placid guy you could ever wish to meet to being a racer's worst nightmare, because he literally would not give an inch to anybody, no matter what name was on the back of your leathers, who you was, how many championships you'd won. If he'd seen an opportunity to get past, whether it was the thickness of a cigarette paper or a meter, he'd go for it, and he wouldn't care about the consequences. So
just going in on that, I was looking to speak to Michael Rutter recently, and he mentioned that on the Mission bike, that was when he first spotted this raw talent of Chrissy Rouse. And he said that the one thing that stands out in his memory was at Oulton Park, just before the TT as well. So Michael would be gearing up to the TT, he'd be on the bathing bike, I guess.
Shitting himself, trying to keep himself in one piece.
Might be an SM team.
No, it was
Batham's bike it would be.
Yeah, and Chrissy dive-bombed him last corner for the podium. I think Chrissy said...
That doesn't sound like Chrissy, that.
Michael said he literally took the bars out of his hands. It was like he was having it, and he just thought, wow. And he got on the podium after. He was probably a little, should have been annoyed with him, but obviously he's a young lad. He and he just said, listen, I've got a TT next week. You're like, Chrissy, like you say, didn't care the name on the leathers. But I also know that, like, for Chrissy to beat Rutter would have been a massive hero of his. And to be stood on that podium with him, and I even said to...
Because he'd done 3 moves on him, actually, in that race.
Right, okay,
and he sat him up, and did it again, and it was funny. I heard Rutter have a word with Chrissy, not a nasty word, you know what I mean?
No,
just for advice.
I think he said
calm down.
No, Michael will be more pissed off. He's just lost like 200 quid in prize money because Chrissy's just nicked an extra few hundred quid in prize money.
On the same sort of subject as well, Philip Neal. It was a bit of something that Chrissy had said to me once. So I spoke with Philip Neal on this, and he'd watched Chrissy come through. Obviously, he'd have been with Hutchie at the time. Would that be right? Correct? Yeah. Tycho would have been Hutchie, in those years. And obviously, Chrissy was a thorn in the side because he'd be a private BMW, not well-funded team, just dive bombing Hutchie everywhere he went. And he just said that if Chrissy got in front of Hutchie, he said it just made you feel nervous because we've got to get past this lad who's not going to give in. And Hutchie, so this happened over 2 seasons, and because Mission would have been in the back paddock and Tycho would have been in the main garages, Philip Neal didn't know who Chrissy Rouse was. He just knew he was a rider from Newcastle who had a heart of a lion. He said when he first saw him on a podium, he just thought, that cannot be the same lad. He said he just pictured it would be a cage fight in tattooed,
Yeah.
Geordie, fully pierced up.
A rat, like a fast version of me, then missing fingers.
He just said that he's never known a contrast like it in all his time watching racing. Yeah, like you said that on the
some
TV.
Some of the trouble, mate, that I had to. Sorry, Dom. Some of the things that I had to try and talk him out of. I mean, just to name two. So obviously it was a long process to try and sort of dial this aggression out of him and sort of so he could ride with controlled aggression and let's say more finer passes rather than sort of dive bombing and passing with his heart rather than his head. There was one particular one at Brands Hatch it was, and he'd come down out of Druids making a pass up the inside of Adam Jenkinson it was into Greymill Bend. And I've been good friends with Adam for years, raced against him. Adam raced in my team. And so we were good friends. And I'm actually stood on the pit wall with Martin watching this race. And Chrissy comes down anyway. Comes down, makes the pass, but nudges into Jenko. It was only ever so slightly, and I've had it done to me down there before by Gaz Johnson. Yeah, just a little love tap. But obviously, Adam couldn't tip in and make the corner, so he had to go straight on up the grass. I can't remember if it was wet or dry. I'm sure it was dry. Went up on the grass, stayed on the bike, turned the bike round, obviously before the tyre wall, and come back down. Needless to say, I knew he would be absolutely bubbling because I think there'd been one or two instances out on the track before where Adam had said to me, if that little shit comes anywhere near me again, he's getting it, or, one of them. And I'm like trying to not laugh. And I said to Martin, Marty, you're going to be ready for some fisticuffs here, because Jenko ain't going to be happy with this one. And anyway, needless to say, I think Chrissy finished in the top 3 seconds or something, comes down the pit lane into the winner's enclosure, and Jenko comes over the sea of people shouting like that, mouthing off and pointing at him. And next thing, there's windmills getting thrown all over these people. And I end up having to get hold of Adam, and Jenko's brother got hold of Marty, because Marty ends up throwing a few in, and it was like full on. It was going to be a brawl if it never got brought under control. But that's just one instance, and
just one of many. Yeah.
But underneath all this, Chrissy's in the background in the winner's enclosure, looking at it all going on, pissing himself laughing, just finding it hilarious.
And I was busy with bikes. That's why I didn't get involved.
Piggy didn't get involved because he was putting the bike on the stand. But it just sums Chrissy up, and nothing was ever intentional. He was not a bad-natured rider. No. He was just full of something that I couldn't teach him and dial into any rider, is that natural want and will to want to win a race and succeed. His determination was so I can't even put it into words, that how much he wanted to achieve, what he went on to achieve, was all there in them early days. And I had to try and coach him to rein it in a little bit and just think about his passes a little bit more finer here and there. And eventually he did learn, because he had to, because he was upsetting a few people in the paddock. And well, the rest is history.
Because that was interesting, because that's one thing that when I spoke to Philip Neal, he said to me, how did he develop that aggression? Was it something he worked on? And obviously you can answer that question now, and it was the opposite. It was something that you tried to die. So it was even rawer in his early days.
He never ever once come into me and said he's just done the right move on me.
No,
or that were out of order. He never.
No.
He thought, I used to just think, get ready, because you're going to get double back. If you've done a move on him, get ready.
Yeah.
And normally.
So that speaks a lot to know. So Chrissy was okay for giving it out, but he was okay to take it as well. He was a tough racer. He would give it to anyone, but he was also, if it got done on him, like Piggy's just openly said there, he would just take it on the chin and never moan about it.
He got taken out twice in the Morello year, didn't he?
Yeah,
twice.
Yeah.
Not his fault. Quite a bit of damage, and they were bad moves. They were like from nowhere, just T-boned him, and he wouldn't even want us dwelling on it. It would be like, no, it's done.
You hit the nail on that. You know the word gentleman. He was a gentleman, and even gentlemen had fisticuffs and duels and shooting each other, and that's how he was, wasn't he? But like you say, if he was standing there, I can just see him there laughing on the podium. But it wasn't like an egotistical laugh. It was just like, it's race. I can just see him now, just going to his face up, going, "It's racing. Why? You know, it's
going back."
He would never ever hurt a flat. He had no violence in him, and he would never ever want to hurt somebody. He wanted to race. And for people who haven't seen the funeral, Kev did an awesome speech, and he's actually labelled this great conversation over one terminology. Would you like to tell the listeners?
Yeah, well, it's, we'd often have a bit of a, like Steve said there, a bit of a giggle about he'd maybe put a bit of a bit of a dive bomb. But he, in the end, because he on Facebook he calls himself Crispy Rouse, doesn't he? If people seen that, I don't know why he did that. Was that something to do with the kids at the school?
It was the teaching element, so it was like they couldn't track him down on social media, he could separate it off and stuff like that. So Crispy.
So he called himself Crispy Rouse on Facebook. So
Betsy, his niece, so his Katie's little girl, called him Uncle Crispy.
Because it was
like, I'll put that on the face. And anyway, sorry, carry on, nice.
So yeah, if he dive bombed someone, he called him Crispy. I gave him a Crispy special. So that would be like he shut his eyes a bit as if to say it was a bit.
Shouldn't have done that one.
Yeah. But
doesn't that just neutralise it though? The Crispy I've been crispy. You know, it's like
He phoned me up one day and he said, "Steve." It was at I think it was one of the race meetings during the 2020 season when he won the championship. And he said, I can hear your voice in my head saying, just draw alongside him on the inside of the cone. Just draw alongside, don't pass him. You don't have to pass it, and you've got the line, it's yours. Because what he had a habit of doing was, he was that keen. He'd think, Chrissy, in his head, he would think he'd have to outbreak to get past, actually physically past him. But then he'd run wide, the other guy get under him, and then he was back to square one. So I said, mate, why? Well, don't dive bomb right past. You don't have to pull, like physically get yourself past them. I said, just draw alongside them, going into the corner. As long as you've got the inside line, it's yours. You've done it. So like, then you're not running wide, and they're not cutting square in the corner.
And it compromises them as well.
Exactly. So I
said,
just pull it in. He said, I can hear your Scouse accent in my head. Just pull alongside. Anyway, I'm glad I got through to him in the end. Did you teach him bite the screen? Yeah, because he transferred that onto me in one super where he just do what Brogan does, bite the screen. And he tried a Scouse accent, and he was shy at them.
Well, let me tell you that going back to him, he never needed telling how to bite the screen. He bit the screen every bloody lap. I was trying to get him off the screen to calm him down, but on the moments when a rider ever does need to bite the screen, he could turn it on like a light switch without it just comes second nature to him. And as I said, one of his most gifted things to have as a racer is to have that raw, natural aggression inside and that burning fire inside to turn it on when you need to turn it on, accompanied with all the skill and the knowledge of what you need to do to combine a lap or a race or whatever. He had it in abundance, and obviously that's why he went on to win the British Championship and be the top lad that he was. But you'd never, anyone watching any of the pods, think that he was such a... And as I'll say it again, only the lads that race against him know exactly what this conversation's about.
I can't remember who I was speaking to. He got we were chatting away, and he goes, "You know what the good thing about your comparison is, Tom? It's like I would never ever introduce you to my daughter, but I would let him marry her. You know what I mean? It was like, actually, you know what? You've hit the nail on the head. You know, obviously, if your daughter brought home Chrissy Rouse, be like, mint. Bring home anyone else, get out of my house. That was like that human comparison element. But then if you saw him on a racetrack, you wouldn't let him near your daughter, would you? Not a chance. Not a chance.
Yeah, going back to what you said about turning it on in abundance when he needed to and when he could and when the opportunity was there. I think as his career went on, he got better at knowing when he could push and when the bike was capable and not. I think that was probably fairly clear that he matured in that side of his riding. But the one that sticks out for me, and you were there as well, Piggy, and we all watched it on telly, but the year with on the GR bike at Open Park.
The Kawasaki.
It'd been a difficult year. I mean, there was quite a few decent lads on Kawasaki. There was a brand new Kawasaki then. It was the first year in Superstock trim for it. And
Chrissy won 2 races on that bike that year.
he won one, I think 4 or 5 podiums.
Okay, Luke Mossy won a couple, did he?
He
on
did,
the
yeah.
Kawasaki?
So there would be Mossy on him. There would be Keith was on a Keith Farmer was on it.
Was
on
this
a Kawasaki.
2021?
2021. Jordan Weaving, and some decent. Rollo. Rollo did get a win in the wet, didn't he?
Mackenzie was in
Rollo
that
got a
year.
win.
It was
Okay.
loads.
Competitive year, and no one was really getting the best out of the Kawasaki. I mean, Mossy did it in.
But the
Brands.
bike was still clearly a winner if different various riders were on it.
Yeah,
And
but
this is in
Everyone was trying
2021.
different things, weren't they, to get it working.
I think where it seemed to work best, and it was at the Parkland circuit. So someone like Snetterton and Silverstone, both Mossy and Chrissy really struggled. Whereas like Open Park, Brands Arch, Mossy won at Brands, Chrissy went a bit better at Brands. But so I think the week before we'd been at Snetterton and struggled, and I think finished the best part of 10 seconds off the win, I think, and we'd come away a bit sort of dejected, and he never let his head go down, though. He'd always come back thinking, well, next weekend will be better, we'll find. And we got to Alton and
Try and take the positives from each
we got to Alton, and first session we're in the top 5, and which is looking a bit better, and then qualified okay, nothing brilliant. I think it was a damp qualifying. I think we were probably 8th or 9th, something like that.
Yeah.
But then he got away and led the first. There was 2 races that weekend, and he led the first one, and only Mossy ended up going with him, and it was a race between them. And Luke won that one, didn't he? And finished 2nd, and it felt like a win because we've been so far away.
Yeah.
But that Sunday race that came, he said to me, if we're going to win on this bike, it's going to be this one. You know, this is going to be the one we're going to. And he put everything into it, but probably the most measured I've ever seen him ride. You know, I'm one for my sectors, and I think it was the Knickerbrook sector. It's only 9 seconds long or whatever, but I think every single sector of that race was within under a 10th difference. The variation, just neat, tidy, best he could, kept it in line, and I mean, Mossy got past him with a lap to go. Yeah, but he knew he was strong out of turn 1 out of Old Oak Corner, and made that amazing pass into Cascades to Nick. I think Luke said he made a bit of an error at Old Oak Corner.
That's a ballsy one to pass there as well. When you drop off that lip down into Cascades and the bike gets unsettled.
But he'd been strong there all weekend. It was somewhere he'd worked on being strong, because we didn't feel we could pass anywhere else. And and to get that win that day, despite, you know, it felt a bit against the odds at the time. You know, it was coming towards the end of the season. We hadn't managed to get a win, and he wasn't for giving up, you know. But when that opportunity came, he put it all together. And for me, one of his finest hours, that win. I've got he did me at the end of the year. He did me a canvas. And it's in Parc Fermé, and you know, both of us are just beaming because he got that win. You know, it was the 2020 year. There was a few wins, but they were always like not expected. But when you pull some out of the bag, that's against
some fine moments that really count, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'll treasure that canvas the rest of my days.
Piggy, if you don't mind me asking, what was your best moments that you've shared with Chrissy, ones that stand out? Because obviously, for those that don't know, Piggy, how far do you and Chrissy go back? From what year did you start?
13th year we're in this.
Well, the news is out now. That's actually his dad. So it's about time the world knew that's Piggy here. I tell you what, before you answer that, I feel like, you know, there'll be a lot of people watching this, and they'll be like a bit like, I just introduce everyone. Normally Chrissy does such the good job of introducing. Like, Kev, you've spotted him like for years and years and years. Steve Brogan, well, if you don't know who Steve Brogan is, get out underneath the rock, you know, stock 1,000 winner. And Piggy, you've literally looked, you know, you have been. My favourite memory before that is there was no Chrissy without Piggy, and no Piggy without Chrissy. And you know what I mean? Like, even going into that, what
well, that's it. So obviously, knowing your partnership, Piggy, and that you go way beyond before I ever got to meet Chrissy. So just explain a little bit of when you first started with them, and what year was that? What bikes was that?
Super teen year, when it was
2013,
John Davis. Yeah.
John Davis, yeah.
And an award ceremony, please.
An award ceremony, yeah. And then he went 125s with Steve
Patrickson on proper GP 125s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you spanned that bike then? Did you? That was your first year with him?
I was like Steve's apprentice, really.
Was he? Yeah.
Yeah.
On a little 125
that was a good year, actually. Yeah. it's funny, I'm still friends with Steve. Sort of like people I've met through Chrissy.
Still mates, yeah.
Yeah.
He was 8 times British champion, I think. Steve Patrick.
That was luck, though.
It was luck, was it?
Just luck, yeah.
Okay.
There were no skill or judgment involved.
Just 8 times.
So was it green and red bikes?
Yeah.
Right.
Black, green, and black. No, but it's red, green, and black. Really, yeah.
And
a bit of blacks, right? Yeah.
After the 125, then. So what year was
then
that?
we did
2014.
I don't know age. That'll be 14, will it? Yeah. Then we did Triple Challenge.
Triumph Speed Triple Challenge, which was
that we were Rob Guyver won that year.
Oh, okay. So the first year Rob Guyver won.
13, that'll be. I think
13. Then second year Chrissy won it.
So that'll be 14.
You see, that were there's been like loads of high points. You know, to pick one would be.
No, tell you what, I've got that wrong. I think it'll be the way. It'll be 13 that he won it.
13 he won it, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
So you spanned for Chrissy that year on the Triumph?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen a little bit of footage on YouTube and stuff, and things he said to his mum on the way out. He said, Mum, if anything happens to me, just I want you to know I'm doing what I love and stuff, you know. Yeah. And that was during them days, wasn't it? Of the Triumph Speed.
And Karen says that at the funerals.
I noticed
anyone's watched
that.
the funeral, she says that.
Yeah. Really special words. But so just carry on, Piggy.
Then we did. I sort of missed because the mission one were last minute sort of thing. I'd sort of missed. I'd gone elsewhere that year.
Oh, okay.
Because we had a year in Spain, didn't he?
That's right.
And
too.
then
He went over to Spain doing his training.
Yeah. So I went over a few times then just to knock about with him and hang about with him, really.
Drink some beer.
Fitted him a clutch to Seabiscuit, like a slipper clutch.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to tell people what Seabiscuit is, by the way. They'll be thinking that's a horse. Go on, you're gonna have to tell people.
Yeah, well, it's told story on here. I'll tell you about that CBR. It's that CBR 600, isn't it?
Yes.
I've got a good story about Seabiscuit coming up. So.
Me too. Also, I'd like to add to that.
Bloody hell!
It's a famous bike, this Seabiscuit.
When I was fitting this clutch, Martin asked me if I'd go and fit it. So I said, yeah, no problem. So gets out there. Chrissy picks me up from airport. And we're driving back down in his van.
Did he have a sign like what Brogan?
No.
The humble
No
Chrissy. Hello, Piggy. Like, come on, Chrissy, you're taking the piss here.
In New Piggy.
So we're like halfway down. And I says to him, where is clutch then, Chrissy? Is it at track or have you got it at caravan? And he went, actually, I ain't quite got round to ordering it.
Typical Chrissy. Typical
chaos.
Chrissy. You know what? I bet you said it so like I haven't actually got it.
So I just this was a Thursday night, so I had Friday, Saturday, Sunday in sun. Come back Sunday night, it's like, Dad, we're going mad. It's like, not been ordered and it's not come, and it's like, no. So his dad ended up ordering it.
Yeah.
And I flew back out following Thursday. Fitted this glory. So I had like 2 weekends in like, and it was just, it don't matter, does it? When it was Chrissy, it just don't matter, does it? You're just having a blast, aren't you? Just like.
So just to add on to that story, so this bike, I don't know, how did it become named Seabiscuit?
Was it not a biscuit colour at the start, no?
I forget story now. It's all.
Seabiscuit won the Grand National, didn't it?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Is that what it was about?
Yeah. Maybe.
So this bike is a CBR 600, an old CBR 600, the RR one with the exhaust under the seat. So when I first started spending a bit of time with Chrissy over in Almeria, when I was coaching, Chrissy was over there on this old CBR 600, living the life of a racer, training, supporting himself, just by himself, basically 18, 19 years old. And in return for his work for focused events, he got a load of free track time on this old CBR 600 on scrapper tiles off the scrap pile. When obviously you weren't there, Piggy, he was spanning himself, so I'd see him like on the floor, the brake pads out, trying to do oil changes himself and stuff, and I was like, fair play. He was in the garage, like shit high in oil all over his hands. Then he'd be like, wash his hands, get his gear on it. Next thing, I'd be out on track coaching. I'd have like 2 or 3 guys behind me, all with the bibs on, coaching. And for those that know Almeria circuit, there's a big long left at turn 3, big long left goes on forever. Chrissy had come right round the outside of all of us with his elbow down on the floor, scraping on like that, looking at me, like as if to say, thanks mate, keeping all your clients on the inside. And I'm not kidding. Like, and Martin won't mind me saying this, but this bike at the time, I don't know whether Chrissy had jumped off it a couple of times over there or before he went. It was the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen. It was this bike. The handlebars were bent. The left handlebar was bent down. The bloody, there was no balls on the ends of the levers because they were snapped off. So I don't know whether it had been dropped over. The foot pegs were bent. The bodywork was all hanging off. It was the biggest turd of a bike I've ever seen.
I think he jumped on someone else's bike and said, your bars are bent, didn't he?
Yeah. So this bike was that bad. And going back then, I could not believe what I was seeing when I watched him with his elbow on the floor. This was before they all had elbow sliders. And he's riding around the outside of guys on brand new R1s on this old pile of shit with his elbow down on the floor. And it's funny enough that only last weekend old Seabiscuit is getting sent back to the UK and arrives here next week for
because they lost
Marty,
some spacers on calipers, the spacers in between fork leg and caliper, and he'd lost one of them. It's like because they're round, so it's just rolled off somewhere.
By the way, I would like to, before we go any further, Chrissy was not, I repeat, not a mechanic.
No.
He could barely change a wheel on a car. He was highly intelligent, but even he knew his limits. You know what I mean, didn't he? You know
that's what worried me, because looking at him doing oil changes with filters out, and he looked like he didn't have a clue what he was doing either. I was thinking, shit, does he know what he's doing?
You know them bit of plug here, Ains manuals, no relation, but anyway, I bought him one of them, and I took him that out. I said, Chrissy, just look at that. If you're not sure, look at that.
Have you just given your second name away there?
Said,
you don't think anyone knows that?
Nobody knows that.
We can't be. It's like no. We can't give a magician's tricks away. You can't give the first name away. So you were saying about the space out. We're pissed off.
He'd lost it. It's like rolled off somewhere. You know what I mean? So it found two 16mm flat washers. We're near enough, right thickness. So I goes back. Didn't say anything to me. I turns up to just get back at once of it. I'm like, which space is in, Chrissy? I lost it. He said, but they're all right. They fitted all right. So we've been riding around. So when I get back on, I'm like on eBay again, some space.
Really?
Like I bought an handlebar, and I'm like, then next time I went out, I used to go and fit these new bits.
Oh. And what were the best bits then, Piggy, for you? What's your highlights when you look back?
Them in Spain were good
years?
as a sort of the social side of the relationship, if you like. But as far as the sort of racing side, I don't know, that Super Teen, then I don't, sort of the ones is won, championships is won sort of mean a lot, like Triple Challenge and stock, even that stock, it's backward against wall, isn't it? Really, he shouldn't have, I think that's when he were bang on.
At his best.
Yeah. When he was like, and I knew when he'd come in sometimes.
He beat the official Honda team and stuff to that championship.
Yeah. So measured that year as well.
Yeah, he'd come in sometimes, and
that season wasn't even supposed to happen, was it, Piggy? Because it all fell through at the start of the season. Yeah. And between yourselves, Phil Crow, and a few of the good people, we all got them back together. Gabriel got them back on track.
I always knew when he'd sort of come in, he had that wink, didn't he? He just used to wink at you. And I'd go, all right, and he'd go, bit of a lunge on, whatever.
Bit of a special.
Like thinking, here we go, But it's like, that year, best one, I don't know.
Going back to that, you don't forget that's all on a film. If people haven't watched it, like Chasin the Championship, a great film by Dave, our great friend Dave Baum. So if you've not watched it, people who are listening. But,
there's been so many moments. I could sit here.
You could sit here and write your own book, couldn't you, Piggy, about him?
So many funny things that we've sort of done. First year he come to TT. He come on back on one of my mates, and he was stopping in our digs. He up at Near College in Douglas. It was Stan and Sheila's. And like they'd been known him years, sort of thing. So we told them we were fetching this, so they'd sort of started watching him anyway, sort of thing, So we knows Chrissy, and straight away he's wanting password for internet. And he was asking me, I'm going, I don't know. Red phone box down road, Anyway, we told him to post his stuff over. So I told Karen, I said, post his stuff across, saves carrying it. Just gets posted at stands. then we can post it back. It's no problem. Right. So, and they were there for like 4 days, I think they went. We were there for sort of 9, 10 days. They were there for 4. So it were after shops had shut when they were going for the ferry. So I said, leave your box. I'll post you that. And, all right, yeah, that's great, because I can wear this afternoon. And so that was the plan. So when we get in after racing, they'd gone to ferry. There's Chrissy's box there. So I thought, got a bit of fun here. So we're down into town. Bought some pink handcuffs from Ann Summers' shop. A packet of Johnny's, took one out, as you always do.
What you did, you took one out?
Yeah.
Or just put in your wallet, is that?
Yeah, I love how he looked at the Scouse land. Don't us two like that. He knows what I'm on about.
We're into
Johnny's, what are they?
Says the man with kids there,
yeah. We're into TK Maxx, a couple of pairs of knickers. And then we're into one of the news agents in Strand. So I said, I'm going to get a porn mag. Of course, I'm there looking at these porn mags. My mate Sutty, he's at door.
Oh, God.
And he's like watching me, and I'm like looking. They're all on top shelf.
Could you read?
So I could read. Right? No, it's true. So this woman,
Have to get the step.
no, this woman's outside of me. She like looked at me, and I was like looking up at these porn mags, and she like look down at me, and I says, "Excuse me, could you pass me that razzle, please?" So she reaches down for this razzle. So then I've got pen, and I'm writing all tattoos on all birds in porn mag. So I love Piggy and that on their arms. Puts all these in his box. Well, before we put him in box, Sutty tried knickers on.
Oh, my.
And my mate went in shower. Ace, he went in shower. So I grabbed his camera. Sutty got these knickers on and the photo. So when he got that back to his missus, this is Isle of Man love. Anyway, I sent it back. Yeah. Of course, Chrissy
Karen
at
had
school.
ordered it,
Karen on box, yeah.
No.
Like,
No.
Like, Chrissy were like, "It's brilliant, we're loving it," you know what I mean? They were like,
God, I wish I was in the room when Karen opened that up.
yeah,
She's
yeah.
got a proper sense of
I said,
humour.
did you look in porn, Mac? I said, I've done tattoos. She went, I just put it in bin. I thought, all my artwork wasted.
I tell you what, I've got a question for like all three of you, and I think that's borderline like one of your answers. But what's your favourite off-track memory? Like your funniest favourite off-track memory with them out of racing? Because
my favourite one, I wouldn't want to share it on here because it's too personal.
Yeah, wait,
to
you
him.
don't hate.
No,
Yeah.
so it's a funny one.
Ah.
It is hilarious, but I wouldn't do it to him while he's not here.
I tell you what,
If he was here, I would.
Get a couple of beers, catch him up in the bar. There, I have to meet you. But I tell you what, not a lot of people know this, and like you're saying, people always go off like the gentleman and everything like that. Chrissy had a proper sense of humour.
Oh, did
Oh,
you?
no.
Yeah, you see how we all went a lower octave there. We're like, oh yeah, no, and that's the brilliant of him. You know what I mean? He wasn't a square far from it. He was just he had a proper
Oh, he
sense
knew how
of
to
humour.
have
It was
a
class.
laugh.
Oh, he
Oh
did.
god, it was class.
And just going back to Piggy, because Piggy, obviously you played a massive part in all the years of his racing, and going back to I was going to say, obviously I understand that across the years there was maybe one or two teams that were wanting to use their own mechanics and was like, oh no, we don't need your mechanic on one particular time. A certain team was tried to get rid of you, didn't they? And I don't want to name them because it's irrelevant. But the point I'm trying to make is Chrissy was that he had your back 110%.
Yeah.
It was like, well, if Piggy ain't mechanicking for me, then there's no point carrying on.
I know he did.
That was his attitude, wasn't it, towards you?
Turn the ride down, but he did say if I didn't go with him, he weren't going.
Yeah, and I can totally
that,
understand.
to me, well, I always used to say to him, Chrissy, if you get an offer, don't worry about me. I'll do whatever. I'll either just go back spectating or I'll go somewhere in paddock, and there's a few teams where I'd like to go, if you know what I mean.
But that's why.
And that's why I'd want to do it. Yeah.
No, that's why he wanted you around because you
Incredibly loyal.
The loyalty,
he had that
the
attitude from
loyalty,
you.
yeah.
No one Chrissy surrounded himself with the people that he wanted to be surrounded by, and it was no more than like Piggy there. You know, it's a bit like
Absolutely.
Piggy would have let him go, and that's why Chrissy actually went, nah, bollocks to that.
Yeah,
You're actually a good one. You'll come with us, son. And the same with you, Kev. And Brogan, like, you would have dropped me like a bad habit, deservedly so. I'm just like, you know what I
You've got
mean?
it to come now, don't you? Stuck with me.
Yeah, so going on to that,
Oh, God.
if you don't mind me saying, so Piggy, I'll let you announce what you're, obviously, because a lot of people will be wondering, well, what are you going to do now? Because obviously, little Rasta man's not here to look after no more. So what are you going to do now,
I'm
Piggy?
going to look after Dom, or Dom's going to look after me, whichever way we look at it.
Definitely the other way around, son.
So
Definitely.
Dom, what's your plans then, mate? Tell us your plans for next season.
Yeah, so I think it's a good opportunity to discuss it. It's a case of
and obviously you can now announce who your crew chief's going to be.
Yeah. And
we haven't had a chat about it, Brogan, No,
obviously I'm on about the man sat next to me.
that's no,
I'm no crew chief.
all sponsorship accepted.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So come on, Dom, let's have it.
no. So it's a bit of a before we made any final decisions, it was a case of we all the BSB, the brands there were the tribute, and I got an opportunity to have a word with Piggy in private, and I said, look, I'm just gonna say it how it is. I would love you to help me. I really would love you to help us. But if you don't want to, that is 100% your decision, and you're not gonna, that I will support that. And if you don't mind me saying, it was like Pete said, look, if I'm not gonna help you, who am I gonna help? And you think, he wasn't gonna help anyone else but me. And I thought that just shows what Chrissy and all of us meant to each other, and that was for me a tick in the box. And I went, well, I'm not doing it without the Rouse family, I'm not doing it without Piggy. And it was
So continuing what you already do at the TT for him, really.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
it.
roads with you, so
that's it.
Do you
But
want me to tell you what that makes you?
Oh God.
Special.
I'm special even before this, mind.
The reason I say that is because I tried to poach Piggy that weekend to come and join our team for next year, and he was like, "Oh, Steve, no, if you don't mind, but I've already
got a better
committed to
offer."
Dom."
I caught him at the gate on the way in. I knew
So
what
do you
was
know
gonna
what I
happen.
said? I said, "Dom, he's shit. Don't
It's
go
right,
with
though,
Dom."
100%. I completely know you're not. I agree with
No,
you.
honestly though, I obviously approached Piggy because I was thinking, well, what are you going to do? So Piggy, I know it's a bit early, but there's always a place for you in our team, like 100%.
And I think like the whole
anyway.
paddock feels like that a little, but like for me,
But it's very fitting how he's obviously been as loyal as what he was to Chrissy, and he's chose to go down the route with you. So good luck with that, Piggy.
yeah. One of my favourite podcasts, and it keeps coming back in my mind. And I remember Chrissy, we were interviewing you, and he goes, "Oh, this is our mechanic." I said, "Whoa, Chrissy, whoa."
Yeah.
I said, "He's not our mechanic." I said, "He's your mechanic, but I've got him on loan." You know what I mean? It was them. You know what I mean? It was like the Punch and Judy of it. These two. And like you say, I've been very lucky to have Piggy, help us out with like the counting team and like our own efforts at the TT. But we're gonna.
So going on with you're going to be helping Dom at BSB. You're hoping to do a bit of scratching, aren't you?
So that is the plan. So me and Chrissy, like 5 episodes ago, when the BMW F900 Cup was announced, Chrissy was like, "Look,
That's got your name all
you
over
should,
it.
you should do." And he was very actually like, "Look, you should do that." And I'm like, bit of a shite bag when it comes to the money. Like, I'm not going to get the violin out about that, but it's like I want to focus on the roads. And Chrissy went, "Nah, that is got your name on it. You need to do that championship." And I was like on the fence, and goes, "No, well, with the pod and everyone, that was just Chrissy." Every
You're
time,
doing it,
every day. It was like,
basically.
no, just don't, just borderline, don't think, just do it. Just we'll make it work. And it was like, right. And then in those 5 episodes, a few people might have picked up. We're all going, well, what do you make of the F9? We're trying to get a bit of
Feedback.
I know what do you make of it. And some people are like, nah, it's not for me. And loads of people going, it's good. And it was like, right. But then,
It's going to be some class. It's going to be oversubscribed, isn't it?
oh God, it is oversubscribed. And it was a case of like when this happened, it was like, right, we're definitely doing it. And like, so me and Chrissy are going to be in the full the F900, and then we're going to try and do the 2 opening rounds of stock 1000, but just get prepped for the TT and get the gum shield input in from there. But the F900 I'm looking forward to. And like on that note as well, with like plans, The good thing is, like, I'm sorry you made a note of it
No,
on your
it's
I do apologise on that, and it was, I'm going to be bringing obviously the studio down to the BSBs to continue, and the good thing is Grace, is going to come along with us, and like this is all hers, and I think I'm going to bring this up now before I forget it. And when this decision came around to continue the podcast, I was actually very much for closing a chapter. That's me being honest, and you can't be anything but honest. I was up for going, look, son, if you're not here, I'm not doing it. We built it together, and that's the end of it. And Grace, Martin, and Karen literally sat me down and said, we want this to continue. We cannot let this, like, all of Chrissy's work go. And when you've got 16-year-old Grace going, look, I want this to continue, it was like, right time. It was she's quite threatening. No,
At that point, you said, well, let's negotiate wages. What's the wages?
No, God, well, that's it. Like,
so she's going to continue to go to BSB, and obviously she did Chrissy's social media. She's already doing a few other people's social media, and
she's got her own company.
She's going to do our team's social media. She doesn't know it yet.
Oh, right. Well, you're going to have to discuss wages with her. I've already texted her.
You may have to get to the bottom of the queue.
That's it. But like Grace is starting her own like social media bit, like
G-Race, is it called?
G-Race Media. Well, it's Grace Media. She'll put the link on this because she, like Chrissy and them two were.
Chrissy sent Grace for some. There's like I don't know the exact details. There's a company around here who specialise in social media, getting better profile on social media. Yeah. Chrissy was wise enough, as he always was. I'll get Grace to go and do it. Was it work placement? Or he got her in there for a bit of time, didn't he?
A course to get you how to do it.
But bearing in mind, before like Grace, like Chrissy was taking more on, and then but you see, Grace has always been like. The thing is, I'm not even exaggerating. Like there would be no Chrissy Rouse without Grace, and that was like why it was good about the scooter, because Grace was on that scooter more than Chrissy, running around with passes, everything. As a little sister, like she did everything. Everything for Chrissy.
Brands Hatch midsummer when I stepped in one round to help Chrissy because they didn't have a crew chief, and obviously I was trying to juggle things between my own team and then come from the lower paddock back to the top paddock, and I was like, Chrissy, could just pick us up on your way to the garages. And he was like, oh, I'm already up at the garages, but don't worry, Grace will be down to pick you up. 10 minutes later, there's Grace outside our run, and Steve, here's Grace come to pick you up, to take you up to the paddock. It was like a lot of stuff would not happen without Grace, would there? So,
and as far as that's sorry, but it's like that is such an important thing about Chrissy and the legacy of that. Chrissy was family was always at the forefront. Everything was always like, people say, oh, well, I wouldn't be here without me dad. He was like, look, I'm not. The family have sacrificed the holidays, and his family were the first person to be thanked, first person he spoke to, and it was just that whole family were there for Chrissy, not for results, or it was just there for Chrissy. And you think, Grace, as far as a little sister, holy crap, what a woman.
Yeah,
what a woman.
On the subject of Gray, obviously, it was mentioned at the funeral that they'd never fallen out, never argued, all that time together. But there's a little story that SJ told me. Chrissy's physio, SJ.
Yeah.
Big personality is SJ, great fella. And they did spend hours, obviously, during the week at home here in Newcastle, and SJ would come to the meetings as well. But obviously, on the therapy table, you'd be talking about all sorts of things. And he said that SJ said that Chrissy said to him once that one day his little sister Grace was going to make one man a very lucky man, because she was just an amazing person, and someone was going to obviously be lucky enough to be with her one day, and he was so proud of that, and that love thing he has for his family, that he's always had, and well, he has for us all, to be honest, but it's that connection he has, the love for both his sisters and little Betsy and his mum and dad. You can't teach. It's just there. It's just there. And having spent a lot of time with Martin, Karen, Grace, and the family, especially since the funeral, it's clear to see where it comes from. But he's taken it to the next level almost. He's run with all that that childhood. You know, when you're a kid, you develop those. Your parents mould you to be something, but he's gone on and used those attributes and taken them to a level that you rarely see in a man, in a young man especially.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was so touching that he could share that with physio, that how highly he thought of his sister. Couldn't love her anymore.
How nice that we can obviously the whole bike industry can still see Grace go on to do what she's gonna do with the podcast in the BSB race meetings and
on the scooter.
On the scooter and with doing media for different various teams and any teams that are interested in wanting a media person, get in touch with Grace, because that's what she's going to be specialising in, and it's going to be so nice to still see it and be heavily involved in the BSB paddock and bringing the trailer, as you said, Dom, and operating out of here. And
I didn't quite realise how much there is involved in social media. We sort of will go on stuff, but to get things to the top, permanently get them to the little tricks you use, little techniques that I didn't realise you could be trained for it. But it's a niche thing to be able to do.
So Chrissy was active on it, very active, and we put bits together, and we got up to like 6,000. Grace came along, over 40,000. Over 40,000. That is just
by how you put your information out, and short little clips and videos that intrigue you, that you click again, and all these clever little things that you need to be able to do.
And she's graphs and graphs and graphs. And I tell you what, that is something like that is a very important thing about this, is when we spoke about continuing the pod, like my only rule with continuing this is I'm not doing this without the Rousers, and more importantly, and I need to get this clear, and Grace, if you take this out, we all know, we've all heard this, and we'll grass you, but this podcast is now hers. And what I mean by that, that's not a pressure thing going, this is all, nothing. We will put the same commitment as we always have. But Grace is 16, she had a heart ripped out of her chest, and everything's changed for her. The whole family have changed. And this is Chrissy's legacy. He's my friend, he's our friend, but that's their family, and she may get to a point where she may go, I want to stop this. It may not go the way she wants to. And she may just want to change her mind, may feel like she has done enough, or we can do this forever. But this is up to Grace. 100% up to Grace.
Open book.
That's it. Mind you, she's never getting married, because I'm not letting anyone near her. So that's it. I'm joking about it.
That lucky man will have to wait on it.
Millionaire, billion. Let's go billion. Let's I think she'll make her own billions, to be fair.
As long as the podcast is a success, I'm sure Grace will be hungry to keep it going, especially in her brother's legacy. And so it's up to all of us lot to try and help and contribute in whatever ways we can.
That's right, yeah.
To make sure that this podcast is continued in the best way we can all help.
Yep. If we can just backtrack, we were talking about Seabiscuit before.
Go for it. Let's go back to Seabiscuit.
I had this thing that I wanted to say today. So I've prepared something to read, which I didn't really want to. It's not as natural, but it has to be this way when I explain why. Okay. So the great man Andy Lund, who made this trailer that all the recent podcasts have come out.
Yeah.
Well fitted out.
Yeah. It's like me, him and Chrissy, a bit of a band of brothers, really. We do a lot of trials riding together over the winter. We had a little group chat that we always had. A lot of similar interests, and just all three were good friends. I know he was really close to Chrissy, and after Chrissy's death, we all struggled massively, and he said he felt a bit lonely, he spoke to me on the phone a bit. He wanted to get his words off his chest, so he did a very clever thing. He decided to write it all down, everything that was going around in his little head, as he said to me on the phone. And it's a long piece, very long piece, but I've picked a piece out that I particularly liked, and I wanted to share with everyone. So if it's all right, I'll go ahead and read it.
You crack on.
Okay, so it's an excerpt from a piece titled "Gifted" by Andrew Lund, written on the 8th of October 2022. Today, I'm trying to comprehend my world, without Chrissy Rouse in it. My phone keeps pinging with another well-wishing message or a social media post of condolences and loss from his hundreds, if not thousands, of friends. I can't bring myself to read them just yet. Everybody, I guess, grieves in their own way, and I thought it might help me to write something down on paper about the amazing man he was, and always will be to me. Right now, I am bouncing between angry, devastated and lost. I keep thinking about the plans we had for our future adventures, and then think of little Betsy, Grace and the whole Rouse family and how their loss is insurmountable. During the week since Chrissy's accident at Donington Park, I have been recounting to myself some of the times we spent together and how we became such good friends in the first place. Now at that point, Lundy goes on to explain, I'll miss this bit out, explain how he raced in the Triumph Triple Challenge that year in 2013, and Chrissy also raced in the championship. And they didn't know each other, they hadn't really crossed paths or met, but he mentions that. But he says that Chrissy went on to win the title, and he was completely blown away by Chrissy's raw talent. But then I'll get onto the bit that I really wanted to share today. And so back to Lundy's story, Gifted. In 2014, I was back in the Triumphs, and at July I attended a track day at Cabell Park to get a little practice prior to the race meeting. Chrissy was there riding too, on an old bike the family had called Seabiscuit. I plucked up the courage to say hello, introducing myself by saying, "I'm sure you won't remember me, but I raced you in the Triumphs last year." He told me he did remember me, but I think he was probably being polite. One of his many superpowers. Despite my slight embarrassment, I asked if he could take a look at me on track and offer me any advice on how I could improve. Of course, he was thrilled to help and said he'd find me out on track, follow me for a lap or two and take a look at my lines. Follow me he did. The main feedback afterwards from Chrissy was that my line around a corner called Charlie's onto Park Straight was wrong and compromising me massively. He said he would try and find me in the next session and demonstrate the correct line. A few laps into the next session, as I approached the bottom of the mountain, I hesitated slightly and caught a slower rider and figured I would wait for the next safe opportunity to pass. Suddenly, Seabiscuit flashed past me and the other rider, sitting him up into hole bends. With Chrissy going into barn, one-handed, looking over his shoulder to check I was there, I tried to keep up. As we approached the section of track he had mentioned to me, I concentrated hard on watching carefully his bike position and tried to understand his earlier instruction. Then, going into Charlie's, Chrissy rode clean off the track in front of me and crashed. It turned out he had been trying to exaggerate the wider line at the entry point, at the late entry point for me, for my benefit, and had misjudged it slightly going over the blind crest. Poor Seabiscuit was a mess. Chrissy told me some years later that his dad Martin wasn't happy and gave him a proper roasting for crashing a bike on a track day. What was remarkable to me, though, was what happened later that evening. Not having my number, Chrissy found me on Messenger and sent me 2 screenshots. He had completed 2 full sides of A4 paper with tips, notes and diagrams to help where I was going wrong. I mean, who does that? He really didn't know me from Adam, and his bike was wrecked because of helping me. It was the first time I realised the special kind of person he was. And I'll skip to the end now, the final paragraph of the long thing. I just thought it was a great way to end one of these amazing words. In truth, as I'm typing this, I still can't believe he's gone. He spent his entire remarkable life putting others first and considering other people's needs. What an unbelievable gift to us all. I will miss you so much, my friend. Rest easy. How cool was that? Eh?
That's amazing.
What can...
Nice.
Wow.
Just sums him up. Sums him up exactly the person that he was, just helping others. And yeah, I mean, how stupid if you're willing to crash while helping somebody else.
That is class.
I must add to that. That's so easily to do round Cadwell Park of all places. Like, you've only got to be take your eye off the ball a split second and you're off the track. So, but
yeah. There's actually there's a video of it, so I'm sure Grace will edit that into the podcast. And I've also got, Lundy sent me the 2 A4 pieces of paper. I have those as well. I've got a screenshot of them, yeah.
Chrissy and Lundy went on to be real good friends after, from that sort of struck the friendship up from then
That's right.
onwards. And and hence here we are sat in a trailer which Lundy's kitted out kindly, you know, for the podcast, and they went on to be great friends after that. I wonder if Lundy kitted the trailer out just as a bit of like a compromise for crashing your bike. But you know what I mean?
I tell you what, the next time we get him
I'm just putting 2 and 2 together. That's
100% it's making sense now. Because that like you say, like Chrissy went down with like some cash. You know, this is Martin's trailer, and Chrissy went down. He had some cash on him, but not loads. He's like, I don't have enough. And I'm like, right, we'll head down. He said, I'll give you this, and Lundy just went, nah. Just went. He put cameras up, man, inside for our reaction. You know, when he opened the door, and it was
proud of what he'd done, and he's right to be as well.
And it was just, oh God, and it just showed what, you know, they had. And like I said, like at the beginning of this is what Chrissy's done. He's just brought us all together. And even going back further in the pod, it's like we're not going to get this right because we need everyone on the show. And Lundy will, you know, and the thing about not putting a bow on this today, you know, this podcast, you know, we're never putting a bow on it. The whole continuation of this podcast is to talk about stories, and when Lundy wants to come, and like we'll get Lundy on, you know, we're going to talk about these stories again, and there's just endless amount of stories. But Lundy, if you will be listening, Lundy, that was brilliant, and that was absolutely brilliant.
Blokes aren't the best at showing their emotions and writing things down, and for him to sit for hours, I'm guessing, to write, I'm sure Grace will ask him if anyone wants to read it. I'm sure he'd be happy to share what he wrote that day, and or over those period of days. I don't know how long he did it over, but there's a lot of really moving stuff in there, and a tribute to the special man Chrissy was, and also to their friendship.
Very nice. It was very, very nicely written. Going on to what you just said there about blokes are not the best at putting words together or speaking and getting the feelings off the chest. Just to touch on that, Keith Farmer, I just need to mention Keith's name.
Yes.
Keith, what a talented young gentleman that he was.
What a smile.
You mentioned Keith's name, and all you can see is his face with his big smile on.
Yeah.
And when I think of Keith Farmer, it takes me back to 2012, first round of the BSB Championship, freezing cold, Brands Hatch, cold, wet. He was riding for Paul Bird's PBM Kawasaki.
In the Stockers.
I was riding for, in Stock 1000. Yeah. And it was his first year in Stock 1000. He just won the Stock 600 Championship. And it was his first race on the big bike. I'd never even heard of Keith Farmer. And I was riding
number 303, was he then?
303, his number was. And I was riding for the Bill Base BMW team at the time. I was as fit as I'd ever been. You know, I was ready and wanting to win the championship again. Anyway, set off the race. It was freezing cold, wet. We were all on wets. I had me heated grips on, obviously, riding a BMW. Nice and warm. When I disappeared into the lead, I had a couple of seconds lead, and I was reading my pit board, perfect, like plus 2.5 or something out of my pit board. I thought job's a dream, I'm controlling it, and I thought, got this one in the bag. Next thing, plus 2, next lap, plus 1.5, next lap, plus 1, plus 0.5, plus 0.0. I looked behind and I seen this kid. I had no idea who it was, just seen this white bike with colours on. This kid come past me sideways into Paddock Hill Bend in the wet, and I just, straight away, I just thought, he's off. 100% he's off. I felt like I was not on the limit, but I was close to him. And this guy come past me sideways, and literally I just thought, crack on, mate, you're going to be down soon. You know, I was just waiting for the corner to see him on the floor. This kid went on and just annihilated me in the whole field. Turns out it was Keith Farmer. He'd come from 26th on the grid, qualified 26th, come through, not only won the race, he disappeared into the distance, and he went on to win the championship. He went on to win the championship that year, first year on the Stock 1000. He went on to win 4 British championships, and two in
Supersport, 2 in Stock.
2 in Supersport. He won Stock 600 and Stock 1000.
Of course, yeah.
Obviously, he contested a couple of years in BSB, which he had some good showings, and I'm sure he had a lot more to show as well. But
brave, so brave.
it baffles me, and I know it's easy to sit here, but I don't know Keith's circumstances at all. We all don't see all these problems all over social media. We, as people, only share the good bits on social media. That's all people want to see. People don't want to see the shit that's going on in your life and the struggles and the problems you've got. We've all had them. Some people have had them worse than others, but one thing I do know is that there is help there for anybody that is struggling. And I speak passionately about this because only this last week I've been but trying to help a good close friend of mine who's known in the BSB Championship and has raced at top level all over the world and won a lot of championships and races. We were teammates, me and him, when we were 14 years old, and he's struggling with his mental health and alcohol abuse right now. And it's, and I'm hoping and praying that reaching out and speaking and trying to get him the relevant help that he needs is going to help him turn the corner that he needs to turn. Because I'll be honest, I've been waiting for the dreaded phone call, and I don't want to get that phone call. So, all I'm trying to say is to any guy out there, bike racer or not, if you're struggling with anything to do with your mental health, reach out, whether it be to a good mate, your best mate who you can trust, or it doesn't matter. A problem shared is a problem halved.
One of Chrissy's proudest things with this podcast was people getting in touch, and you touched on it, and people struggling to get through like COVID, but we get a lot when you think really you shouldn't be expecting any, as everyone, you think everything's in the world, like you said, everything's great and grand, but we do get a lot of people saying thank you, and that was Chrissy's proudest thing. He'd ring you up in the middle of the night and talk to his dad and talk to the family. He was like, look what we're doing. Look, what, he was so proud of that. And we did a podcast that we've decided not to air. We didn't want to air it. There was nothing malicious in it, nothing like that. And we actually had a couple of lads on, and this is when Chrissy was the whole. I make it sound very juvenile, the fact that he ran his own superbike effort. Him and his friends, he was under pressure, and Chrissy liked that pressure, but that was even getting to the point he was learning this is a bit much, and you could see he was getting more tired and everything like that. And he found the challenge in that, and he was trying to go that his own challenge. And you could see that, he was getting a little bit quieter, but his proudest moments was like helping other people. And after we did podcasts, me and Chris used to have chat and have a coffee and everything. And he was getting very active, and very forthcoming with mental health, not because of his own, but he was realising if he was feeling under pressure, what other people could feel. And we were getting to the point where it was actually, we were going to have to use this platform even bigger. And it was to bring that. And Chrissy, I'm not just saying this because you brought that up, it's just, like we said, he's definitely sitting over there nudging all of us, going, you need to talk about that.
I told you we're into that lad at Brands came up to me on that last round. Saturday morning, I think. I were walking down to go under tunnel, into paddocks to get bike ready for you for parade lap and that. And he came up to me, and I didn't know him from Adam. He recognised me, and he just came up, and from listening to this, he was sort of, you don't know what it means. And told you into when I got down into paddock, and you think, that could be that one person that Chrissy said, if it helps.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, it's worthwhile.
And like you say, and it's trying to get that more forward, and exactly what you said, that you've done what Chrissy wanted to do there. So thank you very much for that. And it's something that we need to work on together, everyone, like you say, and push that forward.
It's just it's a tough subject, and as we know as guys, guys deal with things differently than the ladies, don't we? So and bottle things up a lot more. And
before anyone gets upset, of course, everyone suffers from mental health, but like you say, that trying to separate that stigma, for the men's side.
Times are changing,
I'll tell you what. It was. I'll tell you who spoke up highly of this as well, and it really touched me was is a cage fighter from Liverpool called Paddy Pimblett. Paddy the Baddie, he's known. Paddy the Baddie. Anyone Google Paddy the Baddie, and he's a crazy cage fighter from Liverpool.
Yeah.
And one of his, I think it was his last fight actually. I can't remember where it was because I'm not into cage fighting, but he done an emotional speech after his fight, and he was basically trying to make weight for his fight, and he'd just been told that one of his best mates had committed suicide, and because of whatever weight he was feeling on his chest. And Paddy, all he wanted to do after his fight was all his PR and press was use that stage and his platform to promote men's mental health. And he was so angry and frustrated that his friends felt the only way out was that. And he was trying to basically just say, guys, if you're struggling, if you've got weight on your chest, speak up, speak out. There's people there waiting to speak to you to help ease this pain. You've got to speak out. And he was so passionate, and he was obviously really cut up about it, and it was so raw to him because once the fight was over, he could then sort of mourn his mate, but he was angry at the same time, as you can imagine, and he wanted to use his platform to address and make guys. And if you YouTube the interview, you can see it on YouTube how passionate he was. And again, I'll mention his name again, Glenn Irwin. Glenn spoke really openly about his struggles in the past and tried to voice his opinions, and I think that is very it makes a big person of somebody to have the courage to speak out and admit that you've once struggled with your mental health. And I'm no different. I've struggled with my mental health when I stopped racing, and the luxury lifestyle of going racing every weekend, I drowned myself for weekends on ends with alcohol, trying to deal with a few issues and stuff like that. And thankfully for me, I had a good family and my boys at home and a good wife that I could talk to and open up to. But some people maybe don't have that network around them and think that they've got no one to speak to, but there always is somebody there waiting and wants to hear your story, no matter how irrelevant you feel like it might be. But
Because it's definitely better than it were, isn't it? For people listening, if you like, when things like, say, well, BSB are organising, and because like our era, well, I'm a little bit older than you are. You were like, it was just sort of, I don't know, like, oh,
you'd almost mock it.
Should have get on with what you went on about.
The bloke was crying at work. It
was like, and I think going back to with races, it can be seen as a weakness. If you do any weakness, they'll go for it, won't they? As in on track, if you like. You know what I mean? But
I don't think people go. But
not now.
The rider,
the
rider thinks.
Then
that's right.
But sort of,
even
now,
I think even now a rider would be like thinking, well, does that show? It would be part of the reason he might not want to open up. But like Sir Glenn have proved, it doesn't.
When it comes
make any less.
When it comes to actual mental health, as in away from the track, it's obviously riders wouldn't gauge you that, and I'm sure
that's right.
Nobody looks at Glenn and thinks he's a weaker rider, because I wouldn't like to face him on a racetrack.
Glenn's
I mean, when
100%.
Because it were like, say, when I were I'm not a kid, but sort of growing up, you were just like, oh, shut up, just get on with it.
When I was a lad.
But no, people did it, didn't.
Yeah.
It weren't an issue, were it then?
Yeah, I remember when I was an apprentice learning joinery, there was a guy who was a bit upset. His wife had just gone off with somebody else, and he opened up at brew time and started crying, and no one knew what to do or what to say, and it all felt a bit awkward. But not long after the brew time, one of the lads is making a joke out of it, shouting, no, it was just like you mocked it almost, and it's come a long way from those days, hasn't it?
Can you remember Radio 1? They used to have a thing called Our Tune.
Yeah.
At like 10 o'clock, and used to be, you'll not remember it, it was like, it could be an happy story or a sad story, couldn't it? It could be like... And
Simon Bates, wasn't it?
Yeah, Simon Bates, 10 o'clock or something.
Giving our age away, you shut up.
And can you remember music to it?
Oh, yeah.
I forget Grace to find it, actually. Yeah. And they used to play this sort of background music as they were telling the story. And if ever... as a gang of us going to watch racing, like if out had happened, and you were saying, "Oh, my bike won't start this morning. My mate used to get his phone out and play old music from this like our tune.
Yeah, sounded
and then the end of story, they'd play a tune what were relevant to that. Those people in that story sort of thing. Yeah, but he'd mock, you know, he'd like say it was just a stick if you like, weren't it? And you got no. But nowadays it's changed a bit on it, but
well, life's changed though massively, hasn't it? From you look at from back in what was that? What would you say that was, Piggy? The 70s?
Yeah, well,
60s,
66. Yeah, sort of from then on to I probably suppose until like mid-90s, really. Yeah. Even mid-90s, it was still.
You look how complicated life can be these days with the likes of social media and all these different things that technology is thrown in at us for the better or worse.
And kids coming through now, young ones with
well, exactly,
children with social media
it's a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah, you didn't have a phone. Your phone were in house. Only phone were in your house. You didn't like once you'd gone out that way, nobody could contact you, could they? Like, and when you got back in, you weren't looking on Facebook or whatever it is, or I said social media stuff.
Is that what you were just going to say?
And I can remember Razzle.
Just thinking about some of the other things that Lundy put in his little thing in his tribute. It was talked about the going out on the trials bikes. I mean, me and Chrissy, when you came as well, how that was great therapy for him. Great therapy for him. You know, just like it just broke up the week and give you something to look forward to and you know we one of the highlights of the week when we went to a big trials Friday, we'd always go out trial on a Friday and it would be great times. And Chrissy, he loved the trials, and I didn't think it was sort of my suggestion. I said, why don't you give it a go out? So we borrowed a bike. I think he borrowed one off Dean from DC Racing. He borrowed Dean's bike, and I borrowed one because I didn't have one at the time. And I took him to where I always used to go when I was a kid, and it's an amazing place. It's an old disused quarry, probably not been used for the best part of 100 years, and it's bikes still go in there, but not so often these days. But you can go over an old Roman pass, but it's really rugged. And it goes right up onto the top of these fells, and you can ride over the top into another valley. But then if you're a bit naughty, you can sneak off right the back of a wall and go right up onto a ridge. So I said, we'll take him up there, and it was going dusk, so there was not many people around. So I thought, we'll come have a blast over the top, and I was like in front. I was going off piste. I know the track really well, so I was up and down the banks and having a bit of a play. And Chrissy thought he'd follow me. We were getting a bit of a move on across this thing, and so I cut this corner. I knew you could get a bit of a jump across this corner, and he tried to copy me, and he clipped a rock in the thing. Oh, what a peddler he went. He damaged his hip, and season was coming. I thought, oh man. But I can remember he looked at the bike was a mess, and then as soon as he knew we just laughed. It was one of those. It was like a real. We're probably 5 miles from a van, but it had ripped the kill switch off a magnetic kill switch that they have on them, like a lanyard that you have on trials bikes now. But it had taken the tab off, so when you it wouldn't start because the things we had to go. It was getting dark, and we had to try and find this. So that the adventures we had on the trials bikes were great times, and I know Lundy values them, and I'll always remember special moments. We sent sunsets up at the top there, and
it was
and all good for the soul, stuff like that.
But Granty, he does a lot of trialing, doesn't he? Mick Grant.
He does, yeah, fantastic rider.
He always said it were good for.
Yeah.
It's all bike time, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, and out in the country, fresh air. And all that.
Me, Granty, like I'm best mates.
Oh, yeah. You and Mick.
Like Chrissy always, I tell you, more than one occasion, especially to the latter end of the season. With everything, he got knocked off a few times, things like, like bike damage and everything like that. And it was just unfortunate. Like, he had a couple of crashes at Cadwell, didn't he? And they were he was just pushing, he was trying to make it up for it. And he sat down. I remember he was just getting out his gear and everything like that. And he just went, I can't wait just to get on my trials bike. And that was like in his mind. That was like, when it just hit him hard, when he just
reset button.
When he just had a shit weekend, he just went, just can't wait to get my trials bike, and then he'd get out and go better on the bike and get back into his groove. And it was just always, and that was the thing. He was very mentally strong, confident, self-belief, never arrogant. And like we said, with all these funerals, the list of his positives are just endless. But his strength, and that strength like drew people to him, and he just thought that was trials bike was just totally
great day when you
anti-Chrissy.
came over, didn't we?
Oh, it was you. It wasn't. You know what I'm thinking? He's out on his trials bike all the time. I'm thinking he's going to be like the boy, but it pissed him off because he wasn't. What he can do on a motorcycle is mind blowing, and he probably thought
So
I can
Kev,
transfer that
you
straight
nearly
over.
broke him. Is that what you're saying?
100%.
Well, I'll tell you what, the time he had on a trials bike was pretty limited, really. A lot of days, but you need to do thousands of hours on a trials bike to become competent. And he was decent by the
Oh, no, I'm not saying he was shy, but
it
it
frustrated him because it looks easy and it's far from easy. It's a real weird sort of, really alien. If you've ridden a road bike, riding a trials bike.
I can relate to it. I've tried trials once up at Leon Haslam's farm, and him and his dad had a little section set up in the woods there up at the farm, and I was the entertainment for the day, mate. I spent more time on my arse than I did on the bike.
Yeah,
I just didn't have the patience for it. I just wanted to attack things too fast and too aggressive, and it just didn't sit well. I was just spent all the day on my backside.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I've not ridden one since.
Yeah, so Chrissy would spend quite a bit of time within the lakes, and
I was about to say it was him or the girlfriend. It was that, and they both landed at the lakes, didn't it?
that's right. Yeah,
That's about the stamp of it. So
Yeah.
Chrissy's girlfriend, guys, tell me a little bit about his girlfriend, because I never had the pleasure to meet his girlfriend.
Well, I first met she was called China. She was based down in Southend. Right down the
Tell
bottom.
you where she was. It was
Southend.
Bournemouth way somewhere.
Yeah, south of Bournemouth.
South,
I don't know where
south of the sign, I get lost.
Yeah,
son,
south of Leicester anyway.
That's the one. But no, I tell you what, she was very good for Chrissy.
Oh,
Very good for Chrissy. Just they're supportive, and I tell you what, this shows Chrissy's little dark horse element, because he did
I didn't even know he had a girlfriend.
There you are. But see, that was the thing about, you know what I mean? Keep your bank balance and your love life private. And I thought that, he had his head screwed on. 100% had his head screwed on. And like, this is the best thing. This is how supportive of each other they were. Was I've only just found this out after everything, everyone's sharing stories. But when Chrissy was doing the Eurosport and the world stage.
Oh yeah.
World Endurance Championship.
He quickly got like a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a know-it-all. He was getting
the encyclopedia, they called him.
the encyclopedia. He was getting. China was writing notes on the cards and then going they were meeting up at the hotel and stuff. And
So China,
like notes, and he's like, great.
Is that a name, China?
China's quite
China,
China, but it's spelled
CHY.
CHYNA. Yeah,
Not like.
and she's really into motorbike racing. Right,
Okay.
MotoGP expert. You watch Moto3, she knows all the riders' names. Studied like a proper, like a study of the sport, and but quite often when you see girls with riders, that you can sense that they want to be part of the glory of the rider as well.
The show.
And you never sense that for 1 minute.
No,
Just
she wanted
wanted
to, even coming onto the grid with me, she didn't really want to come on.
She was there to support Chrissy and nothing else. And
And she got to know Chrissy through the podcast because we interviewed Josh Brooks. She was a Josh Brooks fan.
yeah,
First time I met Potter China, I went, has he actually introduced you yet? And she goes, no, he's a clever boy, that Chrissy, because if he introduces you...
yeah.
Fair play.
You know what I mean? It's mental, man. It's just mental. And I tell you, going back to the trials element and Chrissy being able to find that release button in his own mind, and he went, look, right, let's just crack on. Any little bump, the organised chaos, he could find a button. And like going into that Donington round, I was incredibly lucky. There's no two ways about it. I was actually racing classic bikes at Croft. Both bikes royally shit themselves. They had no spare engines. Bikes packed in, and I went, right, bollocks to this. I want to go down, see Chrissy, because we actually had Shaky Burn booked in for the night time.
Sunday night, yeah.
And I went, bollocks to this. You know what I mean? I'm just going to drive down and watch Chrissy, and I'm incredibly lucky that I got to see him. You know what I mean? And it was, and you always overthink your last words and stuff like that. But I got to, have you ever had a high five off him or a hand you never shook your hand or gave you a high five?
Just go like that. Give you but he get his hand behind you and go.
Aye, but he was he used to knock you over. You almost braced yourself. You're like, here it comes, bang, and then you'd always bring it. You always I mentioned that, and You know, there wasn't a moment go by after every pod and after every moment I saw, you know,
Get a hug.
like at the end of the day, and I never got that final hug. You know, I got the, you know, and he was like, oh, cheers for coming down. And even then, you could see that release. His shoulders were down. He was like, he was in a good, happy place. You know what I mean? And
it's interesting as well how, like, that weekend, I think China only came, she didn't come very often. I think she came, first round she came as Brands Hatch.
Yeah.
Came at Thruxton and then Donington.
Yes.
And remember the garage on the Saturday night at Donington?
Oh, yeah.
So Chrissy would be, you know, he had the whole, I think, had a hotel booked, didn't he?
Yeah.
Chrissy would normally be in the trailer because I think China was coming, they'd sorted the hotel out. So they were, but all evening you'd find a problem with the bike. So you were, Chrissy was just happy around the garage. Around us all. And China would just, there was no sense of, can we be going yet? Or how much longer is this going to be? She was just, if he was happy, she was happy. Yeah. And it sort of strikes me as well, like Chrissy knew that as well, because first time I met her was Brands Hatch. They sort of, I'll tell you another story about the XL show actually. The XL show was probably the first time you ever met her, was it?
First time actually. Everyone was like, who's this? What's going on here?
First time I met to XL,
So she'd come to the XL show to be with Chrissy, and you were doing the flat tracking, yeah? So it would be you, Tim and Tom Neve. Who else was on the flat track?
Charlie Nesbitt. There was loads of us.
Loads of you on it.
McGuinness was there, and
because China was coming to watch, Chrissy thought it'd be a bit clever and have a word with his mates to see if maybe they could go easy on him and let him win one, because China was coming. And of course, I would probably imagine it was the Neve lads would decide that being good mates, you don't let things like that happen.
Oh.
Yeah.
So not only did they make sure he wasn't going to win one, but they also made sure that they made his life a misery. I think they knocked him off somebody knocked him off in one. But they also tipped the commentator off that his girlfriend China was coming. So to embarrass Chrissy, I think it was Barry Nutley or something like that?
Barry Nutley, aye.
Was it? He would mention us talking about, come on, me old China, giving it. So even the commentary was like referencing China and Sheila being, and I know that Chrissy would have been giggling, even though he's, you know,
China would have been pissed off. Chrissy would have, you know,
he'd
was like, he was good.
So that was one step. But then she came to Brands Hatch, so I hadn't met her until Brands Hatch, and Chrissy said, "Oh, China was coming," and said they were going to go for a track. What do you fancy coming? And it was like she'd just driven up, and I said, "Well, I didn't say anything, but I thought, well, hang on a minute. If she's just come and you want me to go on a track walk with her, that shows that she's clearly not got a problem with. He wouldn't dream of going on a track walk with her so she can have a bit of time with them two. But he said, "No, come with us." I didn't go with them, but just thought, well, that shows that the level of comfort in their own company they were. They were just happy together, and I know she's really struggling, but also she's very proud to have spent so much time.
We were in
got to know
garage one night, and Chrissy were in, and China says, "You know, does anybody want a drink?" So Aaron were in as well. Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, I'll have a brew, please. I'll have a tea." So Aaron said, "Yeah, I'll have one as well, please." Yeah. So China got up to go and make us all a drink.
Yeah.
And Aaron looked down to Chrissy and went, "She's a keeper."
Yeah.
And if anyone knew, and bearing in mind, if anyone knows Aaron off this pod, that means a lot to me. That means a lot.
Just because she was making a cup of tea.
That's it, 100%.
But yeah, she'd done that, and there were no sort of.
Yeah, and it's sort of another thing that's sort of on that subject. When we went down to do the free tech, you were there, weren't you? The free tech at Mallory Park.
Oh God!
You, Ryan Garside, and Chrissy Racing
Captain
team.
Crash side,
and
cost us £1,000. That me and Chrissy could have £1,000 there. You know?
That's not the one where everyone's smashed into.
Oh yeah,
no endurance insurance. Yeah.
Was that the one where they all crashed into each other on the start line? Yeah. Did somebody do a false start?
Yeah, I think they blew a whistle to grab everyone's attention.
It was the marshal that
was it?
Yeah.
And they all went, and everyone ends up in a heap on the floor.
Oh, it was mental.
I seen a video clip of that on social media. I was like, how can something so big go so wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, it was some crap.
So Chrissy was racing, and Lundy said, "Well, come on, I'll take my bike." So I said, "I'll go and have a bit of fun as well." So we'd all decide we'd meet up. So we met up the night before, service area near Mallory Park somewhere, and we were just having a KFC, and we got onto the subject of girlfriends, you know, what Chrissy did. And Ray Rary opened up to me about stuff like that, but he was sort of said something that sort of stuck with me a little bit, and he said that it's really hard because he's trying to find someone who's happy to take sort of the back seat with your racing, with your podcast, with your commentating, with your Trials Fridays, with your and everything else that other events he would go to, and basically it was almost, I mean, it's damn near impossible to find someone who's going to accept that level.
Fit in his lifestyle.
Yeah. And I know that in China he did, because he told me. He said he just if a day got away and he never got a chance to ring her in the evening like he said he would, because he was busy, there was never any she just
didn't
know
get mug on, did she?
no, he just called her in the morning. So yeah.
I tell you what, I think this is a good opportunity to, we're like talking about how happy he was at Donington going into that race, and I think a lot of people have been wanting to ask, what I mean, what Chrissy had planned in the future, obviously beside, like in his race, and obviously beside with China and the family, and he had his own life plan there, but I know fine well that he did have opportunities lined up, and bearing in mind, I said, you can imagine everything in this game. Everything wasn't set in stone. But Chrissy, at first, speaking, a lot of people, that makes it worse. And speaking as myself, not for anyone else, I am over the moon he had that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because you know what? He was just chasing the dream. And that, for me, if he went not knowing that, that would have been a crime. That would have been beyond upsetting.
I don't think
he had the dream there.
It justifies all his efforts, doesn't it?
That's what exactly
justifies it. All the sacrifice, all the efforts, all the family sacrifice from the early days, his sacrifice and commitment to his own team, and to just a little bit on his level of professionalism, having spent a small bit of time with you guys in Chrissy's own superbike team, to do what he was actually doing.
It's a big gamble.
Run that team at that level, with the level of professionalism in the garage, with the look of the bike was second to none. He was competing within the top 10 at BSB level, run his own team. It's unbelievable. I can't even explain, because I've run my own team on many occasions in Stock 1000, once in Superbike, but nowhere near the level to what Chrissy was doing with electronics engineers, and it was unbelievable, the level. And I complimented them on it when I worked with them at Brands Hatch this year. But to hear that was the whole dream, was to be given an opportunity by a top superbike team likes of FS3, basically like a full funded effort, where like exactly what he was trying to achieve in Stock 1000. Obviously he ticked that box, he achieved that dream. The easy option, which I always recommended to him to do, was stay at the top of the Stock 1000 championship and win races, and maybe earn a decent living out of the manufacturers at that level. But he didn't settle for that. He was like, no, I want to go the next level. I want to run in Superbike and prove how good my worth is in Superbike. And that's exactly what he set out, running his own BMW team with Crowe and the guys at Global Moto. And then, but to be given an opportunity, or was going to be given an opportunity like that then just sort of validates all his efforts and all the hard years of sacrifice.
And Chrissy told me that news, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, that was floating around. Did he know? No,
because on that same topic, so Donington Park, I mean, he'd mentioned to me, he would normally tell me, if he could tell me something, he would do, but he'd mentioned at Open Park as an option, possibly we might be on the bike at Donington. And then he rang me and said, it's not worked out. There were a few things that they're going to, and he could sense that obviously he was disappointed in it.
Yes.
But then, so when we got to Donington, there was an air about Chrissy. He didn't have brilliant pace at Donington. We struggled in the final two sectors. He had good pace, but the results weren't looking brilliant. And normally he'd often be a little bit subdued if things weren't quite going as we felt where we should be. We knew roughly where we should be. But he wasn't subdued at all at Donington. And both me and Martin said,
there's a pep in his step.
He's definitely got something up his sleeve here. So that it helps me in a way to know that, there was no frustration. He didn't feel like he had to, he wasn't frustrated by anything. He could just enjoy his weekend knowing that there's a possible opportunity.
The world got taken off his shoulders that weekend. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like he had a signed contract, everything like that. It was like, that the brands was going to happen.
But
so humble.
we've got to be grateful for what he did achieve and what we did. So.
I think there'd been more offers coming in after.
Well, and the thing is, like, look what Paul Bird did from this year, you know, like with the hospitality. Him and Paul would chat all the time, and he would chat to Alan. And the thing is, you hit the nail on the head at the beginning of this pod. People remember the man before the rider. They knew the man, and then he did what he did, and it was like, people need to take a page out of it, and it breaks me. Like,
Dom, where are we going from here, mate? Where's tell us the dynamics of the podcast from here. How are you guys going to steer it?
So at the moment it needs to be dealt with very, very respectfully, and what's going to happen is we're going to start off with 2 a month, and we're going to build up and see what the medal
from
does.
The new year.
Starting from the new year, and it's great. So the plan is, a lot of people going, well, how that's going to work? Well, the plan that we've set out is rolling co-hosts as well as a guest. So, because as we all know, Chrissy Rouse is irreplaceable in that dynamic, and so at the moment we have a consistency that would, like Grace was saying, but we need consistency. But we have 3 consistent co-hosts and potentially some other ones, like geographically as well, you know, in Ireland, the Isle of Man, but the consistency will come from Joe Ackroyd, Christian Idden, and Chrissy's very good friend Josh Corner, and that dynamic, and all of us will like organise times and guests. But we're going to start off with 2 a month. Obviously, that will upset some people, but we're going to have to. We're not starting from the beginning. We're starting on a different path, and without Chrissy, you know, that, like I was saying before, this is the whole world's changed. Our world, especially.
There's 3 good lads there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think you know, Chrissy's had a lot of friends. Not as many close friends, but I think all those 3 lads tick the very close friend box, and the respect she has for them all was.
And
that's lovely.
And the important thing is, Chrissy, you know, he had very close friends, but it's people that will do him proud within the job. And I think, you know, that'd be ideal, you know, like Joe and Christy and their family men, and it's going to balance things out, bring their story in. And I keep harping on about it, but this is Chrissy's legacy, and the good thing is they all loved him and he loved them, you know. It's just
that's good to hear that it's going to be continued on, obviously in a slightly different dynamic, and
because we're
having different co-hosts to come and pitch in with you, and then maybe if you're somewhere else down the country and one of them co-hosts can't join in with you, then you'll get somebody else, maybe you know, a top BSB guy or whoever it may be, Jamie Whittam or whoever, you know, somebody.
And they've all got their own contacts for different guests as well, so you've got a bigger network.
That'd be really interesting, because each week you won't know what you're going to get or who's going to be the co-host with you, Dom. And it'll be really interesting to see what each of them different people bring to the pod, and the different angles and their different views and perspectives on different things. It'll be really interesting.
It's going to be very difficult times ahead, and it's never going to be the same again, and we don't want it to be. We've had great memories, thousands of miles, and shared family homes, and I don't want it to be the same, but I want it to continue for Chrissy.
And that's the thing. I think if because you guys have, as I said before, have worked so hard to build this up to what it is, and it's well respected within the whole motorcycle industry, not just the BSB paddock or race organisation. And if we can, between everybody in the industry, sort of support it and do what we can, then I'm pretty sure all the good stories will continue coming sat in this box, and you know, more interesting people and the likes of, I'd like to see the likes of Shaky still come on and do, you know, people like Chrissy wanted on here. I'd like the likes of Shaky and all these other top guys, and, you know, whether it be mechanics, you know, team managers, whoever ever wanted the opportunity to come forward and come and introduce yourself to yourself or whoever, and you know, come and tell your story, come and share it with the whole bike community. And it's what makes the podcast what it is, isn't it? I'll certainly look forward to each week when you see on the socials, and we've got Chasin The Racin, new podcast out, bang. Like, it's great to get in the car, you're driving somewhere, or if you've got a spare hour at home in the evening or whatever, to put, whether you listen to it or watch on YouTube, it's brilliant. Even if you don't know the person who's on the pod, you've never heard of them, it doesn't matter. Sometimes they're the most interesting ones. So it's good on you, mate, for continuing, obviously, with Grace and the
whole family,
and the whole family, and because as Chrissy told his dad in that interview, the Bennett interview, his dad found out this was his baby, and this was the main thing that he was most proud of. And what a way for any of his friends or family to keep the legacy going of Chrissy and this box trailer is by supporting what you guys do on this pod. It's a brilliant idea, and it's the best in the business, in my opinion.
Well said.
No pressure.
On that note,
no.
Just a quick one, mate. How's your eye? Like, obviously, I know you're wearing your sunglasses, but what's the story with your eye, Tom? Because I'm sure everybody else watching, obviously they know you're not sat in the Caribbean.
That's it. No, I've been.
How is it, mate? Are you recovering or?
Yeah, so no, I suffered an injury in February, and I think it's due to karma because I called all you BSB lads, hair gel, sunglass wearing wankers, and I think it basically just gone bang. But
back in your face.
That's the one.
So for those that don't know, mate, tell us the story. What happened?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Basically, I ripped me. I got kicked back off a chainsaw, ripped my eye out of my head, triple skull fracture and everything like that, and I competed the whole season, did the Rhodes Calendar Northwest TT with one blinker. It works, but it's very blurry, but the important thing is I've had surgery number 4 on it, so I'm getting my blink back, the vision's coming back, which is clear, so it's looking really, really strong for next year, which is like, you know, that selfish element coming in, going, want to get back on the bike, and it's definitely more purpose than ever now more than ever. And like with Chris, with Piggy there helping us out, especially on the Belgrave, Thank you very much. I'm looking at you. So Belgrave and Sheffield, you know, they've stepped up and gone. We're like they've purchased the bike and
the 900.
The 900. So they have purchased the bike, and I've got to get the funds together for the running costs of the championship. But considering like Belgrave, you know, what an amazing company, and like close, and you know yourself with sponsors, you know, being in the game long enough that you know you need to keep them close and keep them happy. And so
going back to so the sunglasses, mate, is that because the light hurt your eye? Does it?
So it's light sensitive because I haven't got any. I've become I think all of us who have sustained an injury in sport, you suddenly become an expert on it very, very quickly. You read up on it and everything, and Dr. Google, as they say. But no, it's because I can't lubricate my eyeball, it gets light sensitive and the pain. So it's I am walking. Well, you know what they say though, Brogan, don't you, about people and sunglasses inside? You know, it's only for 2 people. You know, blind people in arseholes, and I know exactly which one I am, and I'm not blind. So there you go. That says everything, that side of things. But I tell you what, honestly, I think we could sit here, and I think let's have a look at the time there.
But I tell you,
would anyone like to have a guess?
To say, it does make, you know, your achievements this year at TT and what have you, because not everyone knows, do they, Dom? Right? You were struggling with your eye, weren't you, at TT, because it weren't right. There was a bug going round paddock. You had that for
missed 2 nights of practice.
2 nights. You weren't very good on last night for the 3rd night, were you? So when you think all that, as well as getting used to your eye not being right, sort of thing, and results that you got.
Yeah,
I thought fair play.
Impressive.
Look at that, he switched his
there's that 20 quid, son. Just grab it on the
weren't it, Kev? Right.
Yeah.
And we were off on sea, but you were up there in senior. That'd been a right result.
Sitting 5th and then 6th and then.
Look at that, he's making excuses for you before you even start now this year.
Sign him up.
God,
yeah.
No, but I'm looking forward to it, Dom.
Well, thank you very much, mate. I couldn't do it without all of you. So thank you so much. I tell you, I'm really worried about. I tell you what, I'm glad you've got this note list. You just
I'm
keep
just conscious of time, but I think there's no timing. There's no time.
There
limit.
is, you know what?
No.
People can stop. I used to get wound up about the time element all the time. Like, we've got to keep it below this, and
You might have to split this one into 2 hours.
the good thing is, people listen to this. You can stop and start when you want. People think about podcasts. You know what I mean? And with the time gap, people can catch up when it's needed. But on your list there, what
So
we got next?
Nice to sort of link things in, but we've got a few topics that don't really link because
Rack them off and we'll tidy it up.
Chrissy's football is something that people haven't heard much about, but I'm a bit of a football fan. There's not many football fans in bike racing.
Football fan?
I watch football,
Yeah.
Obviously, you
There's not so
can't
many,
be
is
from Liverpool. and not watch
No, mate.
football.
Thank God you said that.
But, some little stories of his football days when he was younger. I mean, I think Jack Bernacle mentioned it a few times, but he was actually offered a professional contract in football.
And that pissed me off because you think, why didn't you do football and pay for your bike racing?
Yeah.
But he didn't. Sorry.
And turned it down purely because he wanted to race bikes, and I think he said he was very honest. He just felt that he knew the level of football and he knew the level of bikes, and he just felt that that he had his feet on the ground and thought that probably his best opportunities would be in bikes, and plus that's what he loved. So he did that. But there's a few little bits in the football. So he won. There was a tournament. I just picked up stories over the years. There was a tournament, quite a major tournament at Blackpool, and his team won it. He was a captain, and trophy was presented to Chrissy by Gaza. So little highlights of his life. I know he was very proud.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think there's pictures of that, and maybe Chris can put those up.
Do you know? Sorry, just to interrupt. I think it was during the time of the Euros, and we were at BSB at Snetterton.
Yeah, he did a keep you up.
And we'd done a keep you up competition amongst the riders, and anyone who wanted to have a go, and Chrissy won it hands down. He was like literally doing all these skills, like putting his foot over and all that.
Did 100 and then just kicked it in the air.
Just volleyed because he basically annihilated whatever the top score was with the keep you up.
Matt Roberts, was it?
Matt, I think it was, and then Chrissy just volleyed the ball like miles away.
He did the same out here,
but he was just talking, like looking at whoever was stood next to him, like just kicking away and not even looking at the ball.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen him with a football at his feet before then.
Yeah.
Obviously being there working with him on the track, and I was watching him with the ball, just how natural it coming. I just thought, there's no way you get that just by, obviously you could see it had some sort of big history in football. Sorry, Kev, carry on, mate.
So he actually scored the winning goal in that final as well with Gaza there. Another thing, they won another major tournament, and Chrissy won the player of the tournament, and the trophy. I think he'd gone, so someone else took the trophy home. One of the other kids took a trophy home, and his granddad thought this kid had won the player of the tournament, and he gave the kid a $5, and told Chrissy this, and he hadn't. I don't think he's told his granddad that he didn't win it. He just obviously was pleased to. And Chrissy just said, "You keep it, mate. I don't need that. You keep the trophy." He was quite happy for someone else to have that. Another kindness of Chrissy. But another little story from his junior football days when he was at junior school. In fact, it was something I found out this week. A local family contacted Chrissy's mum and dad, saying how sorry they were Chrissy's passing, and the story that stood out for them was their daughter. They had 2 daughters that were quite good at football, and they wanted to play in the school team. And this is obviously going back quite a while.
Yeah.
And I guess in them days it wasn't quite as common for girls to play on the school team. And I think it was put to all the lads who fancy having the girl. And of course, the answer was no, we're not going to have the girl on the team. And Chrissy, being a man of principle, decided that wasn't going to happen. And basically said, well, if she can't play, he was the captain, I'm not going to play. And that family remember to this day that girl got to continue playing football for her school because of Chrissy's principles and just, obviously love of football.
You see, you would have done it for another reason, wouldn't you, Steve?
Not at all.
It was junior school, Piggy.
They'd been in junior school as well. Wouldn't have stopped
Start
him.
young in Scousland.
But what an amazing story about it, his principles and his...
Well, that just shows from a very young age to have that morals and principles back then. It
shows the family, shows him, shows...
Yeah.
Shows the man that he was,
100%.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I don't mean to hit it. So I know we're recording this on this side of the year, but Christmas is definitely going to be a tough time for all of us. More so than that, and the farmer family and everyone. difficult times. Difficult
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
But I tell you what. Speaking of that Christmas element, the one thing I've been trying to think how to actually tie this in. It was a case of Chrissy and Grace. I'm combining names now.
Yeah.
I apologise, but they actually rebranded all of the Chasin The Racin. You know, so they got their own logo done by Sean Muir and everything like that. And Grace was put, I'm not sure by volunteering, but she got put in charge of the new merch element. So Grace has got boxes in her room of like the new Chasin The Racin merch, and you know, it's a case of that. Yeah, great. If you want any new merch, it'll be great. It would be great to clear out a room a little bit so she can get to bed at night.
Do you know what there is? Is there?
I have no idea.
Like, be on the website. I guess.
So it's please get in touch on the social media element, because I know it's
Christmas
they've got a lot
well.
there, and Chrissy and Grace worked really hard on that for like the merch element. So it's it'll be great for anyone.
Yeah.
If anyone needs a last minute Christmas present,
Yeah, so if anyone can support that as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
if Christmas is coming, get some
Yeah.
gift sport, and it's for a great cause and for the future of the podcast as well. So
Oh, definitely. But I was about to say, like, I tell you, would anyone like to guess the time how long we've been going?
2 hours 15 minutes.
Ooh,
2.5.
just over 2.5 hours. And
Oh,
I'll
that's
tell
what
you
I
what,
was going to say, but you didn't let me answer.
Ah, damn it! Next time, son. Next time. But we could sit here till literally the cows come home, couldn't we? You know, we could sit here, and the stories are truly endless. But
Like, so you can always do it in 2 parts, can't you? Do part
Could do
one
it
and
in 2
part
parts.
two.
God, Ben and I. But has anyone got any other?
Yeah, there's one thing that's
Go for
I
it,
want,
mate.
I wanted to try and say before we sidetracked on it. We talked about the amazing tribute at Brands Hatch and the auction, which OMG and FS3 and good old Dave Neal as well. Obviously, he was a major part of that auction, and him and the team there put a great auction together. But going on from what BSB did for the family and for Chrissy's legacy there, I got after the days after Chrissy's death, you get like feelings like Lundy mentioned it. You feel a bit angry, you feel a bit, and I'm just feel really grateful that I don't have any sort of nagging if onlys. So what happened was a tragic accident that could have happened at any circuit, any place. But I know in my heart, 100% know that if there was anything that could have been done, it would have been done. And I guess I can come at it from, I've been watching top level British Championship motorcycle racing since I was a young boy, and I think probably my earliest memories would be in the 70s at Mallory Park. I don't think there was a British Championship then, but it'd be Race of the Year, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I think the first major British Championship meeting I went to was that weekend. It was a British Championship in one weekend, so I think it was 3 races over the weekend. I can distinctly remember it was open park, and you didn't realise it at the time, but looking back, it was like a wasteland. The whole place was like quite run down. It was, no facilities at all. But these riders would be going around, they'd be lapping big speeds them as well, because there was no chicane at Knickerbrook and no chicane at Folston's either, so it was just flat out. There was Wayne Gardner there, all the top men were there, and the racing was fantastic that weekend. But these lads really were putting their lives properly on the line. They were you'd have earth banks with railway sleepers and a few straw bales set again.
Tyres, didn't you?
And then
there was that tyres that.
I might be speaking out of turn. I didn't think there was probably any decent medical facilities at all. Maybe a couple of St John's ambulance crews on standby, which, let's face it, weren't going to do much if something big kicked off. And people often sort of say, well, there's no prize money in BSB, there's this. But I can honestly say that we can't sit here and think that they could do any more for safety.
Yes.
No.
They're trying to bring in the smart dash thing now, which is something that people are aware of, that the red flag comes up on your dash. The only championship that I know of that doesn't have a restart, that has no restart rules, so if you crash you can't restart. I mean, everyone remembers Tommy Hill at Lodge Corner at Open Park when he restarted with no brakes. I mean, that's you're asking for serious injury and worse if you allow that to carry. They really are hot. The air fencing, I saw Ryan Vickers and Taron go into the air fencing at Clearways. I was there, right there, and in days gone by, that would not have been a good outcome. And just the medical facilities, I know that there's three circuit cars there with doctors sat in them. The cars are live in every race. There's a doctor at every corner. Even like recently, they've put that extra runoff at Clearways at Brands.
Yeah.
Now, that may never make a difference. We'll never know if it made a difference. But the money that costs to do that, you know, it's
not cheap.
something that you don't have to do it either. You can soon get away and say, well, it's not so bad. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
But they're always inching that safety, that bit, you know, and it's made my my grief a lot better to know that nothing more could have been done, because it wouldn't be a nice feeling to have that nagging if only. I want to be able to say, and we all agree that you know that one thing that the championship's got 100% right is
safety.
attention
Safety
to safety.
of the riders, paramount.
And they're not finished. They just want to keep moving it
Yeah,
forward.
they're improving all the time, aren't they?
Even the marshals, you know, like back in the day, there'd be one marshal on a marshal post. Now they're all trained. They all know the script. They all eyes on stalks, watching everything. Flags are ready.
Yeah.
Little bits like that, just so professional and it's just
It's as good as any championship in the world, I'd have thought.
And I know Chrissy want me to say that as well.
In my opinion, it's the best domestic championship in the world.
Yeah,
There's no domestic championship across the world that I know that is any better than BSB. Hence why all the different nationality riders come over to race in our championship. It says a lot for it in every aspect, doesn't it? So what you're saying is deadly true.
100%. 100%. Well, I think that is a beautiful time to wrap up today. You know what I mean? Not the whole show, but you've got a few more words you'd like to say to finalise this, wouldn't you?
Yeah, if we're about ready for finish. I came across. Anybody else? Anything?
Like I say, we could sit here for another 2 days.
No, I'm fine. For me, it's been a pleasure to come over. An honour to support and offer whatever I can. You know, how small or little it is to help the podcast continue, and it's been an honour to come over here to represent Chrissy's podcast and your podcast, Dom and Grace, and help you on your way.
Yeah,
and tell some stories.
I agree. An honour, proud.
Oh yeah.
Support the family, support Grace and Dom.
Before your final words, obviously, I would like to say thank you to Luke and Global Motor Colchester Kawasaki for all the support, all the sponsors over the years, and particularly to Chrissy's sponsors. Without you lot, without the friends, the family, he wouldn't have been able to fulfill his dream, fulfill it. And the patrons and everyone, without you lot, all your listeners, thank you so much for everything that you've done for him. Thank you so much, and this is a good time for it.
Yeah, so I came across this on social media when I was just I don't go on Facebook very often, but the fact that I came across it and I don't go on Facebook told me, and it was something I needed to read, and it was interesting. I mentioned before, as you get older in life, you get wiser to what you should have done years ago, or what the lessons that you learn as you get older. But when you listen to this, you'll realise that Chrissy had this already inbuilt in him, and I hope we can all relate to this. And so I'll make a start. Every minute, someone leaves this world behind. We're all in the queue without knowing it. We can't get out of line. We will never know how many people are ahead of us. We can't move to the bottom of the row. We can't avoid the queue. So while we wait in line, make the moments count. Make priorities. Make the time. Let your light shine. Make people feel important. Make your voice heard. Make big things out of small things. Make someone smile. Make the change. Make love. Make peace. Tell your people you love them. Make sure you have no regrets. Live life and let live. Be kind. Be grateful for what you have. Enjoy yourself. Don't waste time arguing. Harbour no resentment. Be humble. Make sure you are ready. Life is short. Live it.
Thank you very much, lads. Thank you for everyone listening. We love you, son, and until we see you again. See you.
If I could choose anything to be doing with my life, it would be to be racing in BSB.
It's a passion that I certainly don't have for anything else in life.
I'm like pinching myself.
I feel absolutely indebted to my family for the sacrifices that they've made to allow me personally to chase my dreams of racing motorcycles. When I think about how lucky I am to have that family support around us, it's very sort of humbling.
Like, what could possibly be better than this? There's like 68 million people in the country, and there's 31 people lining up to do BSB. I can't actually believe how fortunate I am to be doing this. It's so easy to sit back and just think can't, and make excuses and block things out, and there's something special about chasing a dream. Even if the numbers don't add up, there's something special about chasing a dream that almost feels impossible. Just going after it, putting everything into it. That's the magic in it. Having something to aim for and going for it, that's the most important thing. When you come away from the weekend, or when you reflect on what you're doing as a whole, there's a massive sense of purpose. It's like a deeper thing than just enjoying it. It's much more important. It means a lot to you. You're putting everything into it.
That first exit of pit lane, just magic.